Chapter 255. On the 27th of May, Star Dragon City, which had been quiet for a day, was once again bustling with noise and excitement. Today was the day of the freshman tournament. At 8 in the morning, the students of the Black Moon Combat Academy left for the Star Dragon Gymnasium to prepare for the tournament. When they entered the preparation area, they coincidentally bumped into the students of the First Academy. Looking at Wang Wenxue, who was standing in front of him, Qinchuan smiled and said, "Long time no see." Facing Qinchuan's greeting, Wang Wenxue nodded and said with some emotion, "It has indeed been a long time. Moreover, I never thought that we would meet again in such a way." When Wang Wenxue first learned that Qinchuan would participate in the 6th Grade Academy's ranking tournament, she was a little surprised, but that was all. At that time, she didn't think that Qinchuan had the strength to enter the finals. However, reality was the exact opposite of what she expected. Not only did Qinchuan enter the finals, but the strength he displayed far exceeded her expectations. "I hope that in the finals, you can show me your strongest side." Wang Wenxue looked deeply at Qinchuan, then turned and walked away. It seemed that she didn't want to chat with Qinchuan. The others followed behind Wang Wenxue, but Yu Kai stayed behind. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws at Qinchuan, saying, "Hey, don't tell me you're thinking of doing a string of 4 again." Qinchuan smiled and said, "What do you think? I don't want our reunion to end with you beating me to tears." Yu Kai rolled her eyes at Qinchuan and said, "All right, I'll talk to you later. I'll find you after the finals." Yu Kai was still a participant of the First Academy, so it wasn't appropriate for her to chat too much with Qinchuan. However, after the finals, she wouldn't have to worry about this anymore. After everyone from the First Star Dragon Academy left, Chen Chongqing winked at Qinchuan and said, "Boss, your first love is too cold to you. And that Yu Kai, she's pretty good to you. Maybe she'll go easy on you. If that's the case, our chances of winning will be higher." Qinchuan rolled his eyes at Chen Chongqing and said, "You go first in today's first battle." Chen Chongqing was stunned for a moment and asked in astonishment, "Boss, aren't you going to kill them directly?" "No." Qinchuan walked forward without looking back. "I've already done everything. What use do I have for you?" Chen Chongqing wanted to say something, but was stopped by Blue Pool. "Qinchuan is giving us a chance to fight," Blue Pool said to Chen Chongqing very seriously. "Didn't we participate in the freshman competition to see how capable we are? Perhaps the arena of the finals will allow us to clearly recognize our own shortcomings." "You talk too much." "You're right." Chen Chongqing curled his lips. "What's the big deal about entering the arena?" But then again, Blue Pool was becoming more and more obedient to Boss. It was threatening his position as the #1 underling. The enormous stadium was filled to the brim from the moment the doors opened. Everyone was excitedly discussing the finals with their friends and family. Some of them were loyal fans of Star Dragon's First Academy, while others were casual fans who had been convinced by Qinchuan's performance. However, no matter who their fans were, they were all looking forward to the clash between Star Dragon's First Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy. They wanted to see who would be the strongest freshman representative between Qinchuan and Wang Wenxue. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am the host for the freshman tournament finals of the 6th Grade Academies. You can call me Lo. There's less than half an hour until the finals begin. I'm sure that everyone is looking forward to the finals. Now, let's see if the freshman representatives from the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy have anything to say before the finals. As Ali's voice fell, the figures of the freshmen from the First Star Dragon Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy appeared on the crystal screen above the stadium. However, Qinchuan and Wang Wenxue weren't there. There were only 6 of them. The image changed, and Chen Chongqing's figure appeared in front of the camera. He was sitting on a sofa with a glass of champagne in his hand. He smiled and said, "Let us congratulate the Black Moon Combat Academy for obtaining first place in this year's freshman competition." "What? The finals haven't started yet?" "I'm sorry, but the way I see it, the finals have already ended. There's no doubt that Qinchuan will defeat all of his opponents and lead us to victory." The image changed again. This time, it was Tseng Shulan who appeared in front of the camera. She sneered and mocked Chun Chongqing. Other than Qin Chuan, your Black Moon Combat Academy is nothing. No, you're wrong. We don't even have a girlfriend yet. We're all still virgins. Chun Chongqing laughed as he unscrupulously made dirty jokes. As Chun Chongqing's voice fell, the audience burst into laughter. They liked contestants like Chun Chongqing. Although his performance on stage wasn't outstanding, he could always bring joy to everyone. Yu Kai blushed and looked at the camera with a shy expression. She said, I hope that student Qin Chuan will go easy on him. It would be even better if he doesn't go up on stage. If Qin Chuan doesn't go up on stage, then there's only one possibility. The First Academy of Star Dragon Academy's performance is too terrible. We only need a few people to defeat you. Bluepool confidently said to the camera, in this finals, if the Black Moon Combat Academy can't obtain the final victory, I'll run one round around Star Dragon City naked. That will affect the city's appearance. I advise you to wear a pair of underwear when the time comes. Red is more eye-catching. Su Wenliang held a wine glass in his hand and looked at the camera with a playful expression. The First Academy of Star Dragon Academy has always been number one. It was so in the past, and it will definitely be in the future. There will never be an exception. I hope that the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy can perform more strongly and give me a chance to go up on stage. Zhao Feihong helplessly spread out his hands. I'm only at Qi Refinement Stage, level 13. It'll be embarrassing for me to win first place in the freshman competition. Speaking of which, if the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy loses, will it change its name to Star Dragon Academy? Sounds pretty good. In the preparation area, Qin Chuan looked at the image on the crystal screen and his lips twitched. He asked Chun Chongqing speechlessly, when did you guys record this? How come I didn't know about it? Yesterday. You went shopping, so it's normal that you don't know. Chun Chongqing smiled and asked Qin Chuan, Boss, do you think our words are domineering enough? Qin Chuan rolled his eyes and said, this is definitely the most boring pre-competition trash talk I've ever seen. Chapter 256. All right, next, let's welcome the two commentators of this year's newbie competition to the commentary booth. After the trash talk segment ended, the host, Alu, once again announced loudly. This time, he was going to introduce the two veteran commentators, Wawa and Methreya. Wawa and Methreya were both powerful cultivators in the middle stage of Gold Core. They might not be particularly strong in terms of battle prowess, but in terms of insight and knowledge, they could be said to be unparalleled in the same realm. In the past few decades of the 6 Great Academies ranking competitions, the two of them would always appear on the commentator's seat, explaining in detail some of the exciting details in the process of the competition to the audience who could not understand the competition. They would use their passionate voices to drive the audience's emotions and enthusiastically cheer for the exciting competition. It was worth mentioning that only the finals of the newbie competition had commentators, but in the official competition, the commentators had to participate in the entire competition. At this moment, Wawa and Methreya had already ascended the commentary booth and passionately greeted the audience. Hello, everyone. I'm the commentator for today's newbie competition, Wawa. Hello, everyone. I'm Methreya. The slightly plump Wawa looked at his old partner sitting beside him and asked with a smile, Methreya, between the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy, who do you think will win? When Wawa asked this question to Methreya, the audience also looked at him curiously. They wanted to see how this commentator with rich experience would answer this question. All along, the First Academy of Star Dragon has been the champion of the 6 Great Academies ranking competitions. Whether it's the newbie competition or the official competition, their performance is always strong enough to make their opponents despair. As for the Black Moon Combat Academy, their performance in the 6 Great Academies ranking competitions was mediocre. According to past results, I feel that the First Academy of Star Dragon has a higher chance of winning. However, this year is a little different. A peerless genius has appeared in the Black Moon Combat Academy, and everyone knows that his name is Qin Chuan. He's a young man who is adept at creating miracles. I feel that with him here, the Black Moon Combat Academy might be able to topple the Star Dragon Academy's #1 academy and step onto the altar As a commentator, he had to be fair and impartial, explaining from an objective point of view. Although Mithria's words would offend some loyal fans of Star Dragon's First Academy, he had also won over a large number of viewers. Mithria was right. With Qin Chuan's strong performance in the past few matches, he might not necessarily lose against Star Dragon's First Academy. My point of view isn't much different from yours, but there's a slight difference. From my personal point of view, I hope that Qin Chuan can lead the Black Moon Combat Academy to victory in the freshman competition. At this moment, Wawa suddenly voiced a rather bold wish. He actually wanted to see the Black Moon Combat Academy win. Oh, why do you say that? Mithria looked at Wawa in surprise. Because in the past, the First Academy of Star Dragon has always been number one. No matter if it's the freshman competition or the official competition, no one has been able to shake the First Academy of Star Dragon's position. This way, the 6 Great Academies ranking competition will inevitably lose a lot of suspense, and the competition will slowly become dull and boring. Therefore, I hope a new variable will appear today. I hope to see the rise of a new powerful academy, and not continue to see the First Academy of Star Dragon outshine everyone else. Wawa said very seriously, I think that this kind of competition will be even more exciting. It's also the competition that the audience wants to see the most. Wawa's words could be said to have struck a chord in everyone's heart. The reason why the First Academy of Star Dragon was number one was because they had never lost in the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. They had always been number one and were the champions. If this had happened once or twice, the audience might have felt that the First Academy of Star Dragon was indeed very powerful. However, if this had happened dozens or even hundreds of times, the audience would inevitably feel numb and bored. This was because they could already guess the final result without watching the competition. Since this was the case, was there still a need to watch the competition? Therefore, the audience longed for a new variable to appear, and Qin Chuan's appearance just so happened to satisfy the audience's needs. It was also because of this that Qin Chuan was able to gain so many fans and obtain so much support. In other words, the audience did not support Qin Chuan, but rather the person who could stand up and change the current situation. I feel that what you said is very reasonable. Mithria chuckled and said, Then today, let's see if the First Academy of Star Dragon will continue their undefeated legend, or if Qin Chuan will break the norm and lead the Black Moon Combat Academy to new heights. As Mithria's voice fell, a total of 8 participants from the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy slowly walked towards the arena in the middle of the stadium. They stood below the arena, facing each other, calmly facing the audience's enthusiastic cheers. This was the courtesy that they deserved. Now, I announce that the 6 Great Academies ranking competition's freshman competition has officially begun. Participants, please return to your positions and prepare for the competition. As the host's voice fell, a representative from the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy each stepped out and walked towards the arena. The first representative from the First Academy of Star Dragon was Sang Shulan, while the Black Moon Combat Academy's representative was Chun Chongxing. When they saw that Chun Chongxing was the first to enter the arena, the audience couldn't help but be stunned. They had thought that Qin Chuan would still be the first to enter the arena, but they had never thought that it would be Chun Chongxing in the finals. As we can see, the Black Moon Combat Academy's first to enter the arena is Chun Chongxing and not Qin Chuan. I feel that this is understandable because the Black Moon Combat Academy's opponent is the First Academy of Star Dragon. It is reasonable for Chun Chongxing to enter the arena first to test the opponent's strength. Yes, I feel that Qin Chuan should be the last to enter the arena as their trump card. When Wawa and Mithria saw that Chun Chongxing was the first to enter the arena, they immediately voiced their opinions. Regarding this, the audience agreed. After all, this was the finals, so it was normal for Qin Chuan to be more cautious. Sang Shulan's cultivation is at the middle foundation establishment realm, while Chun Chongxing is at the early foundation establishment realm. In terms of cultivation, Chun Chongxing is slightly weaker, but he is still a rank 2 array master. If he has the opportunity to inscribe an array, then he might not be Sang Shulan's opponent. That would require Tsang Shulan to be willing to give him the opportunity. Tsang Shulan has always been good at attacking. If Chun Chongqing is unable to pull away in time and is stuck by Tsang Shulan, then he might lose the initiative and be beaten until he is defeated. The exciting competition is about to begin. Let us cheer for the participants. Chapter 257. On the arena, Chun Chongqing and Tsang Shulan stood opposite each other. Looking at Tsang Shulan's proud face, Chun Chongqing chuckled and said, "If I remember correctly, your name wasn't on the list of freshman representatives announced at the beginning of the first Academy of Star Dragon. Qinyang was supposed to be the one standing in front." Tsang Shulan's expression changed when she heard Chun Chongqing mention Qinyang. She said coldly, "What are you trying to say? Qinyang is a collateral disciple of the Qin clan. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have been replaced by you, but you succeeded. So I'm curious, what benefits did you give to the Qin clan?" Chun Chongqing sized up Tsang Shulan with a playful look and said, "Your looks and figure are just average." Tsang Shulan was furious when she heard Chun Chongqing's words. "If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll tear your mouth apart." "Why? Are you angry from embarrassment?" Chun Chongqing grinned and said, "It seems that you used some underhanded means to get the chance to participate in this freshman competition. TSK, TSK, TSK. You're really shameless." Toot toot toot. Tsang Shulan's angry roar accompanied the whistle. "I'll definitely kill you." Tsang Shulan roared and rushed toward Chun Chongqing. She wanted to tear Chun Chongqing's stinky mouth apart. Chun Chongqing couldn't help but sneer when he saw Tsang Shulan rushing toward him. He loved to face such brainless opponents. Golden Cage Battle Formation, activate. Tsang Shulan's expression changed when she heard Chun Chongqing's angry roar. She didn't see Chun Chongqing inscribing a talisman array. Just when Tsang Shulan subconsciously stopped and was about to retreat, Chun Chongqing suddenly retreated and put some distance between them. He started to inscribe a talisman array with his talisman pen. When she saw this scene, how could Tsang Shulan not know that she had been played by Chun Chongqing? She was so angry that her face turned pale on the spot, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chun Chongqing was really hateful. As the saying goes, nothing is too deceitful in war. Chun Chongqing used a non-existent golden cage battle formation to disrupt Tsang Shulan's attacking rhythm. It can be said to be quite brilliant. If Tsang Shulan was not deceived and directly charged at Chun Chongqing, perhaps victory would already be in her grasp. You're right. Unfortunately, Tsang Shulan fell into his trap and gave Chun Chongqing enough time to inscribe a talisman array. This way, the scale of victory might tilt toward Chun Chongqing. While the commentator was explaining some of the exciting details of the match to the audience, Chun Chongqing had already successfully inscribed a talisman array. It was a level 1 trapping talisman array, a talisman array specifically used to harass and restrict opponents. Chun Chongqing had used this talisman array in the previous match. Was, however, just when Tsang Shulan went around the gold trap talisman array, the gold trap talisman array suddenly flickered and actually appeared in front of Tsang Shulan in an extremely bizarre manner. The Shulan array. It's not just A's. It's the combination of this ants. The gold trap glyph matrix was a trap, and the one-leaf glyph matrix was an illusory matrix. The combination of the two made Tsang Shulan make the wrong judgment and fall into the gold trap glyph matrix. This is a huge gamble. If Tsang Shulan chooses to go around from the right instead of the left, Chun Chongqing's plan will fail. No, I think it was premeditated. As far as I know, Tsang Shulan likes to attack from the left. She rarely attacks from the right. This can be seen in Tsang Shulan's previous battle videos. Doesn't that mean Chun Chongqing has studied Tsang Shulan thoroughly? I think that should be the case. Hearing the words of the two commentators, the audience couldn't help but show a hint of surprise on their faces. It turned out that Tsang Shulan fell into Chun Chongqing's trap, not because of a moment of carelessness, but because she was thoroughly studied. In that case, didn't Chen Chongqing have a higher chance of winning this match? Just when everyone was surprised, Tseng Shulan had been temporarily trapped by the gold trap talisman array. She had no time to interrupt the battle array that Chen Chongqing was inscribing at this time. It could be said that she was extremely annoyed. Just when she used her spiritual power to disperse the binding force of the gold trap talisman array and regained her freedom, Chen Chongqing had already finished inscribing the battle array and was waiting for Tseng Shulan to walk into the trap. Looking at Tseng Shulan, who was charging again and had begun to release her full form, Chen Chongqing sneered and shouted, "The game is over! Heavenly Lock Battle Formation, activate!" As Chen Chongqing's voice fell, four golden chains suddenly appeared in the clouds in the sky. They wrapped around Tseng Shulan like golden snakes. Tseng Shulan had no chance to dodge at all. Her limbs were entangled by the four chains, and she was suspended in the air. Tseng Shulan's expression changed when her limbs were bound. She struggled hard, but the chains became even tighter. She felt like her limbs were about to be broken. Admit defeat. Chen Chongqing slowly walked in front of Tseng Shulan and calmly looked at her. He did not have the pride or joy of a victor. From his point of view, defeating Tseng Shulan was nothing to be proud of. Tseng Shulan didn't seem to hear Chen Chongqing's words as she continued to struggle. The shackles on her became tighter and tighter, to the point where they were about to pierce into her body. Tseng Shulan couldn't help but cry out in pain. "Kill me if you have the ability." Hearing Tseng Shulan's shameless words, Chen Chongqing shrugged helplessly and looked at the referee who was standing outside the stage. The referee saw this and looked at Wang Wenxue from the First Academy. As the captain, Wang Wenxue had the authority to represent Tseng Shulan in admitting defeat. Everyone present could see that Chen Chongqing could kill Tseng Shulan at any time if he wanted to. Tseng Shulan had already lost, so there was no point in forcing herself to continue. "Admit defeat," Wang Wenxue said to the referee. "We have lost this match." Hearing Wang Wenxue's words, the referee immediately blew his whistle and announced, "The winner of the first match is Black Moon Combat Academy's Chen Chongqing." As soon as the referee finished speaking, the crowd immediately cheered. In this match, although Chen Chongqing's realm was weaker, he had successfully played Tseng Shulan in the palm of his hand through his understanding of her and the psychological game. Tseng Shulan had no chance to use her advantage in close combat, and thus lost the match. It could be said that Chen Chongqing had won in terms of intelligence, while Tseng Shulan had lost in terms of temperament. The exciting first match filled the audience with anticipation for the following matches. Perhaps today, they would be able to witness the ascension of a new king. Chapter 258. Why did you admit defeat on my behalf? What right do you have to admit defeat on my behalf? I haven't lost yet. Tseng Shulan rushed down the stage and ran to Wang Wenxue. She stared at Wang Wenxue ferociously, as if she couldn't wait to kill Wang Wenxue. Some of the audience couldn't help but boo after hearing Tseng Shulan's roar. A loss was a loss, and there was no point in arguing. Instead, it would make people look down on Tseng Shulan. Tseng Shulan was smearing the reputation of the First Academy of Star Dragon. Facing Tseng Shulan's roar, Su Wenliang frowned slightly and said, "You've already lost. The opponent can kill you at any time. Then let him kill me." Tseng Shulan turned and glared at Su Wenliang. "Does he dare to kill me? I'm the eldest daughter of the Zheng family." Slap! A crisp slap interrupted Tseng Shulan's roar. She raised her hand and gently touched her rapidly swollen cheek. She looked at Wang Wenxue in disbelief. "If you don't shut up, I'll continue to hit you." Wang Wenxue looked at Tseng Shulan indifferently and said coldly, "The Zheng family has a daughter like you. You're a disgrace. Wang Wenxue, I'm going to kill you." Tseng Shulan went crazy. It was the first time in her life that she was slapped in front of thousands of people. Moreover, the person who slapped her was a commoner that she looked down on the most. Slap! Wang Wenxue was a woman of her words. When Tseng Shulan roared, she did not hesitate to slap Tseng Shulan's face again. This time, She used her spiritual power and knocked Sung Shulan unconscious on the spot. Sung Shulan fell to the ground with a plop. Looking at Sung Shulan, who fell to the ground, Wang Wenxue said to Yu Kai, "Get the medical staff to carry her down." Su Wenliang looked at the unconscious Sung Shulan and shook his head helplessly. A loss was a loss. It was fine that she couldn't afford to lose, but she actually threw a tantrum at her teammate. She was simply brainless. This was the 6th grade academy's ranking competition, not the Zheng family. Su Wenliang didn't feel that Wang Wenxue had gone too far by knocking Tsang Shulan unconscious. If Tsang Shulan continued to cause trouble, who knew how big a joke it would be? After instructing Yu Kai, Wang Wenxue turned to look at Su Wenliang and said, "Let's go." Su Wenliang nodded and walked towards the ring. With Tsang Shulan as an example, he would not let his guard down. On the stage, Chen Changxing looked at Su Wenliang and chuckled. Is there no one else in Star Dragon's first academy? Why did they choose such a trash to participate in the competition? Wasn't Qin Yang pretty good in the past? Su Wenliang stood still and looked at Chen Changxing with a deep gaze. He pursed his lips and remained silent. Chen Changxing saw that Su Wenliang was ignoring him, so he asked again, "Are the disciples of the aristocratic families in Star Dragon's first academy as arrogant as that guy? I think these people are spoiled. They should be hung up and beaten up to make them realize the evilness of society." The second round of the freshman competition, Black Moon Combat Academy's Chen Changxing versus Star Dragon's first academy's Su Wenliang. Toot toot toot. Following the referee's whistle, Su Wenliang immediately rushed towards Chen Changxing. He released his complete form without any hesitation. He didn't even try to test the waters and went all out from the start. Su Wenliang's realm was higher than Chen Changxing's, and now that he was going all out, Chen Changxing naturally didn't dare to be careless. He also released his full strength without any hesitation, but he didn't use it to attack. Instead, he chose to retreat and distance himself from Su Wenliang. If he couldn't distance himself from Su Wenliang and inscribe a glyph array, Chen Changxing would have no chance of winning. Everyone can see that Su Wenliang is different from Tsang Shulan. He wasn't affected by Chen Changxing's words at all. In order to avoid any unexpected problems, he released his complete form at the start of the match and used all his strength. It's obvious that he wants to end this battle quickly. It's a pity that Chen Changxing isn't cooperating. He still wants to contend with Su Wenliang and stall for time to inscribe a glyph array. However, will Su Wenliang really give him the chance? As the commentator's voice fell, Su Wenliang gradually closed in on Chen Changxing. With the support of the swift body rune, Su Wenliang was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was only 10 meters away from Chen Changxing. In the next moment, he suddenly closed in on Chen Changxing. At this time, Chen Changxing had only just finished inscribing the trapping gold glyph array. Trapping gold glyph array, activate. The trapping gold glyph array activated, and Chen Changxing and Su Wenliang fell into the trap at the same time. They were deep in a golden quagmire, and at this time, the distance between the two was less than a meter. Su Wenliang didn't hesitate at all. He raised his hand and threw a heavy punch at Chen Changxing. The crazy fluctuation of spiritual power emitted a shocking power. Facing Su Wenliang's punch, Chen Changxing didn't have any intention of blocking it. He actually allowed Su Wenliang's punch to hit his chest. Accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, Chen Changxing spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body immediately rushed out of the quagmire under the impact of the huge impact. With a plop, he smashed into the ring. At this time, Su Wenliang, who had succeeded in one hit, didn't show any joy on his face. Instead, his face became gloomy. At the same time, Chen Changxing got up from the ground with some difficulty and grinned at Su Wenliang. He actually took out a glyph pen and started to inscribe a glyph array. Oh my god, Chen Changxing is really a crazy contestant. He actually didn't dodge and used Su Wenliang's attack to break free of the trapping gold glyph array's restraint. He exchanged a heavy injury for precious time to inscribe a glyph array. This is indeed an incomparably crazy contestant. He made an incomparably crazy decision. If he can defeat his opponent again in this battle, his name will definitely be recorded in the history of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition. This is a crazy contestant who relies on his intelligence to crush his opponent. At this time, the audience couldn't help but exclaim when they heard the commentator's words. They originally thought that Chen Chongqing had no chance of winning after being heavily injured by Su Wenliang's punch. However, it seemed that the more dangerous person was actually Su Wenliang. Now, Chen Chongqing and Su Wenliang were racing against time to see if Chen Chongqing would be the first to successfully inscribe a glyph array, or if Su Wenliang would be the first to break free from the restraint of the trapping gold glyph array and continue to attack Chen Chongqing. Once the first to make a move, the scales of victory would definitely tilt towards him. For a moment, almost everyone held their breaths. They looked at the 2 people on the arena with excitement in their eyes, looking forward to their exciting performances. Chapter 259. Just as everyone was looking at Chen Chongqing and Su Wenliang expectantly, waiting for a victor to emerge between the two, Chen Chongqing, who was inscribing the talisman formation, suddenly stopped inscribing the talisman formation. He casually dispersed the half-inscribed talisman formation and laid on the ground with his face facing the sky. He panted and shouted, "I lost." Hearing Chen Chongqing admit defeat, the audience was stunned. They didn't understand why Chen Chongqing would suddenly give up inscribing the talisman formation and admit defeat, while Su Wenliang was still bound by the gold trap talisman formation. Could it be that his injuries were too severe and he couldn't inscribe the talisman formation completely? Just as the audience was puzzled, commentator Wawa suddenly sighed and said, "What a pity." Although the gold trap talisman formation bound Su Wenliang's legs and made him unable to move for a short period of time, it didn't bind Su Wenliang's hands. If I'm not wrong, Su Wenliang's palms are clasped together. He should have successfully condensed the gray blade in his palms. Chen Chongqing must have noticed this and admitted defeat. You're right. Putting the palms together is the signature condensing action of the gray blade. Moreover, we can also see that Su Wenliang didn't struggle from the beginning to the end. The gray blade has an extremely long attack range, and Chen Chongqing and Su Wenliang are only 20 meters apart. With a gray blade speed, it can kill Chen Chongqing in the blink of an eye. If Su Wenliang used other methods to intimidate Chen Chongqing might not admit defeat. However, the gray blade, its lethality is too strong. In Chen Chongqing's current state, if he were to be penetrated by the gray blade, his life would be in great danger. A wise man submits to circumstances. Although Chen Chongqing lost, I think he must have left an extremely deep impression on the audience. After hearing the commentator's explanation, some of the confused audience subconsciously looked at Su Wenliang's hands. Sure enough, Su Wenliang put his palms together at this time, and the gap between his palms was aimed at Chen Chongqing. Su Wenliang had once activated the Gray Blade when facing the affiliated University of the Mysterious Sky Sect and defeated the enemy with one move. It was almost exactly the same as the current action. At this time, Su Wenliang condensed the Gray Blade, but did not release it. Obviously, he was giving Chen Chongqing a chance to take the initiative to admit defeat. Chen Chongqing was also very tactful and did not act shamelessly like Zhang Shulan. Su Wenliang slowly walked in front of Chen Chongqing and said in a low voice, "Thanks for letting me win." Chen Chongqing raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He smiled at Su Wenliang and said, "I know you can condense the Gray Blade, but you clearly took 3 seconds to condense the Gray Blade last time. This time you condensed it almost instantly. It seems that I was fooled. You didn't use your full strength last time. Last time, I was only fighting in my normal form, but this time, I'm releasing my complete form. My spiritual energy is much stronger and more active than last time, so the speed of condensing the Gray Blade will naturally be faster. So that's how it is. I've learned a lot." Chen Chongqing felt helpless. He had originally wanted to use a simple rank 1 glyph array to harass Su Wenliang and not give Su Wenliang a chance to attack him from a distance. However, He had underestimated Su Wenliang. In other words, he had collected too little information, and his understanding of Su Wenliang was too one-sided. At this moment, medical personnel had already stepped onto the stage and lifted Chun Chongqing onto a stretcher. Chun Chongqing said to the medical personnel, "These are just some minor injuries. I won't die for the time being, so there's no need for immediate treatment. Please inject me with a healing medicine. I want to watch the match from below the stage. I don't want to miss any exciting details." The medical personnel naturally had no objections to this. As an early foundation establishment cultivator, these injuries would affect Chun Chongqing's strength. However, since he had already lost, there was no need for him to continue fighting. It was no big deal for him to delay the treatment for a while. In this way, the medical personnel brought Chun Chongqing to the Black Moon Combat Academy. After injecting Chun Chongqing with a healing medicine, they left. Lying on the stretcher, Chun Chongqing looked at Qin Chuan and grinned. "Boss, I didn't embarrass you, did I?" Qin Chuan smiled and nodded. "You exceeded my expectations. Your performance was really not bad." Qin Chuan indeed didn't expect Chun Chongqing to be able to almost defeat Su Wenliang after defeating Zhang Shulan. Although he lost in the end, Chun Chongqing had already proven that his strength wasn't weaker than anyone else's. At least in terms of brains, Chun Chongqing was definitely strong. "It's my turn next." Blue Pool was slightly agitated. Chun Chongqing had defeated an opponent. If he couldn't defeat Su Wenliang, wouldn't he be defeated by Chun Chongqing? Qin Chuan reached out and patted Blue Pool's shoulder gently. "Don't feel pressured. Just do your best. I'm still here." Blue Pool nodded. Taking a deep breath, he walked towards the arena. Blue Pool will be going up next from the Black Moon Combat Academy. I don't know much about him because this contestant has only gone up once before, and he lost very quickly. Indeed, from Blue Pool's performance back then, we could tell that although he has some capabilities, he's clearly lacking in battle experience and can be easily restrained. After Chun Chongqing's spectacular performance, I wonder if this Blue Pool will be able to surprise us again. In the arena, Su Wenliang looked at Blue Pool, who was slowly walking over. His expression was one of relief. If Qin Chuan went up now, he would definitely lose. However, against Blue Pool, he was confident that he could win another match. This way, he would definitely have to face Qin Chuan in the next match. Even if he couldn't get anything out of Qin Chuan, he could at least exhaust some of Qin Chuan's strength and lay a good foundation for Yu Kai and Wang Wenxiu. Blue Pool from the Black Moon Combat Academy. Please enlighten me. Blue Pool looked at Su Wenliang with a serious expression. He knew that many people were looking at him at this moment. His family, his friends, everyone was looking forward to his performance. Therefore, he had to show his elegance. Even if he lost, he had to lose beautifully. Star Dragon's first academy, Su Wenliang. Please enlighten me. Su Wenliang pursed his lips and replied solemnly. New student competition's third match. Star Dragon's first academy's Su Wenliang versus Black Moon Combat Academy's Blue Pool. The match begins now. Toot toot toot. As the whistle sounded, Su Wenliang once again released his complete form and jumped into the air. Like a meteorite falling from the sky, he brazenly charged towards Blue Pool. At this moment, Blue Pool didn't dodge. Instead, he used a talisman pen and started to inscribe a talisman array on the spot. Seeing this, many people felt anxious for Blue Pool. How could Su Wenliang give him a chance to succeed in inscribing a talisman array without putting some distance between them? Chapter 260. At the commentator's seat, Wawa and Methria immediately cried out in surprise after seeing Su Wenliang's action. Talisman formation masters are best at using talisman formations to change the terrain to restrict the opponent's movements, thereby fighting for a chance to inscribe the next talisman formation. In the previous battles, Chun Chongqing had always done this. Su Wenliang, on the other hand, learned from the shock during his battle with Su Wenliang. This time, he actually launched an attack directly from the sky, not giving Blue Pool a chance to change the terrain to restrict him at all. Yes, given Su Wenliang's current realm, although he can't fly in the air, changing directions in the air isn't a problem. Moreover, when Su Wenliang releases his complete form, his speed has already reached the limit of what can be achieved at his current realm. Blue Pool has no chance of dodging his attack at all. Blue Pool had no choice but to choose to inscribe the talisman formation on the spot. It's because he has no space to dodge at all. Su Wenliang's attack is simply too fast. Oh my god, what is this? Just as the commentator was analyzing the situation for the audience, a new change had already taken place in the arena. Just as Su Wenliang descended from the sky and was about to get close to Blue Pool, a large amount of spirit chi suddenly gathered around Blue Pool, turning into layers of water membranes and wrapping Blue Pool within, turning him into an azure water ball. At the same time, Su Wenliang's attack finally arrived. It fiercely struck the water ball, causing a series of astonishing ripples to erupt. However, it didn't cause any harm to Blue Pool, who was wrapped in the water ball. Everything happened in the span of 2 breaths. Even though the commentators were experts of the Aura's core stage, their speed of speech was not fast enough to match the movements of the contestants. This is a level 1 water-repelling talisman formation, a talisman formation used to breathe underwater. Its defensive capabilities are very limited, but did everyone see clearly how many water-repelling talisman formations Blue Pool activated in that instant? I recalled there were at least 30 of them. Who would have thought that a simple level 1 water-repelling talisman formation would have such a powerful defensive capability after being stacked up? At least, as commentators, they didn't. The commentators were stunned by Blue Pool's performance, and so were the audience. No one had expected that Blue Pool would be able to fend off Su Wenliang's attack with such a simple level 1 water-repelling talisman array at such a critical moment. Right now, Su Wenliang was continuously attacking the water ball. However, every time he broke a layer of the water-repelling talisman array, Blue Pool would activate another layer or even multiple layers of the water-repelling talisman array with his spiritual force. As they were evenly matched, Su Wenliang couldn't break through Blue Pool's defense at all. Below the stage, Wang Wenxiu, whose talent Rune was also of the water attribute, couldn't help but be moved when she saw this scene. The water-repelling rune array could be activated in an instant for her, and it was so fast that she could even skip the inscription process. However, she had never thought that the water-repelling rune array would have such a powerful defensive ability when stacked up. With Su Wenliang's current offensive, there was simply no way for him to break through the defense of these dozens of water-repelling talisman arrays. On the stage, seeing that several of his attacks had ended in failure, Su Wenliang had no choice but to stop temporarily. Instead, he started to condense the Gray Blade. He wanted to use the Gray Blade's powerful penetrative power to pierce through the water ball and severely injure Blue Pool. In the water ball, Blue Pool saw Su Wenliang putting his palms together and knew what Su Wenliang was going to do. However, other than watching, there seemed to be nothing he could do. It's a pity. Although using the stacking of water-repelling talisman arrays for defense is a very creative and genius idea, Blue Pool is in the water ball right now. Other than relying on the existing talisman arrays to continuously activate the water-repelling talisman arrays, there's nothing else he can do. On the contrary, it gives Su Wenliang enough time to condense the Gray Blade. With the Gray Blade's powerful penetrative power, the water-repelling talisman array might not be able to withstand it. You're right. Although Blue Pool might lose, this idea of his has given us endless surprises. I think, after this battle, the water-repelling talisman array might change from a very unpopular first-class talisman array to a defensive talisman array with super strong defensive capabilities. Just as the commentators were conversing, Su Wenliang had successfully condensed the Gray Blade. Without any hesitation, he shot the Gray Blade towards Blue Pool, who was in the water ball. Just then, the layers of water-repelling talisman arrays that enveloped Blue Pool suddenly dispersed, turning into a majestic wave of water spiritual force that surrounded Su Wenliang. Su Wenliang didn't expect this to happen. Unable to react in time, he could only retreat hastily. However, right now, the water spiritual force enveloped him from all directions. There is no space for him to dodge at all. The commentator exclaimed. Blue Pool actually took the initiative to disperse the protection of the water-repelling talisman arrays at this critical moment. He wants to surround Su Wanliang with water spiritual force. But if he does this, Blue Pool will be completely exposed to the Gray Blade. He wants to imitate Chen Changxing and exchange injury for injury. Before the commentator's voice died away, the Gray Blade penetrated the encirclement of the water spiritual force at an extremely fast speed and pierced through Blue Pool's chest. The penetrative spiritual force continued to wreak havoc in Blue Pool's organs, causing his face to turn as pale as a sheet of paper. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. At the same time, the water spiritual force surrounding Su Wanliang suddenly became extremely irritable and exploded. It was as if a battleship's cannon had bombarded the surface of the sea, erupting with astonishing waves. The moment the water spiritual force exploded, Blue Pool was also affected. His body was seriously injured once again. He flew backwards and crashed heavily onto the ground. He couldn't help but cry out in agony. On the other side, Su Wanliang, who was in the center of the water spiritual force explosion, relied on the mountain defense talisman to successfully avoid the disaster. Under the protection of the mountain defense talisman, Su Wanliang panted heavily. His face was extremely pale, and the fluorescent light on his body was also extremely dim, as if it could be extinguished at any time. Finally, Su Wanliang couldn't hold on any longer and removed his complete form. The moment he returned to his normal state, Su Wanliang's body was on the verge of collapse. He staggered and fell to the ground with a plop. He had actually fainted from exhaustion. Looking at Blue Pool and Su Wanliang, who had fainted on the arena at almost the same time, everyone was a little stunned. Was this considered a lose-lose situation? At this moment, the referee, Wang Qian, had already appeared on the arena. He started to quickly check on Su Wanliang and Blue Pool's physical conditions. After confirming that their lives weren't in danger, he blew the whistle and announced loudly to everyone. In this battle, Blue Pool and Su Wanliang have fainted at the same time and have lost their ability to fight. Therefore, I declare that this battle has ended in a draw. Both parties, please send out new contestants for the next round. Chapter 261. It was a draw. No one had expected that this battle, which had lasted less than a minute, would end in a draw. However, even though the battle had been very short, Blue Pool's extraordinarily creative performance had received enthusiastic cheers from the audience. Similarly, Su Wanliang's performance wasn't bad either. Although he didn't know many moves, he had displayed Gray Blade and the mountain controlling Rune to the extreme. This made the audience realize once again how powerful the secret techniques of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy were. This is truly a battle with no losers. Both sides' performances were too brilliant. Indeed, whether it's Blue Pool or Su Wanliang, both of them have reached the limit of what they could do. It's a pity that Su Wanliang had already unleashed his complete form in his battle with Chen Changxing, which consumed a large amount of spiritual energy. Otherwise, he might not have lost this battle. You're right, but this is reality. Not everything will go according to your wishes. I think that even if Su Wanliang was in his peak condition, it would be difficult for him to continue defending the arena after this battle. After all, the next person from the Black Moon Combat Academy to go up on stage is Qin Chuan. When the commentator mentioned Qin Chuan's name, the audience erupted into cheers. Many of the audience members, who had been impressed by Qin Chuan's performance, were cheering Qin Chuan's name. They were looking forward to Qin Chuan going up on stage and showing them a brilliant battle. The unconscious Blue Pool and Su Wanliang had already been sent to receive treatment by the medical staff. The arena was also being refurbished. Next up, the Black Moon Combat Academy's person would be Qin Chuan. After all, Zhao Feihong was only at the peak of Qi refining stage level 13, so there wasn't much meaning in him going up on stage. On the other side, the Black Moon Combat Academy's person was Yu Kai. Wang Wenxue didn't appear early because of Qin Chuan's appearance and was still the finale. On the brand new arena, Qin Chuan and Yu Kai stood opposite each other. Looking at the beautiful and elegant Yukai, Qinchuan smiled and said, "To be honest, I really can't bring myself to be ruthless when facing you. It's not my style to destroy flowers." Hearing this, Yukai, looked at Qinchuan with a subtle look and asked, "The news said that you and Wen Shui were first lovers. Is that true?" "Hey, now is not the time to gossip." Qinchuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman's focus was a bit too strange. At this moment, the referee, Wang Qian, could not bear to watch any longer. The previous few people had wanted to finish each other off in one move. Their attacks were as ruthless as they could be. These two people, on the other hand, were chatting and laughing. They did not look like they were here for a competition, but more like they were here for a date. The fourth match of the new student competition is between Qinchuan from the Black Moon Combat Academy and Yukai, from the Star Dragon Academy. Begin. Toot, toot, toot. The moment the whistle sounded, Qinchuan suddenly felt a cool breeze blow past him. At the same time, Yukai, who was standing opposite of Qinchuan, strangely disappeared. In the next moment, she appeared behind Qinchuan. This move is called Wind Incarnation. Yukai's bell-like laughter rang in Qinchuan's ears. Immediately after, a pair of tender little hands grabbed Qinchuan's ears. Qinchuan quickly turned around and grabbed Yukai's arm. With a gentle pull, he pulled Yukai out of the ring. Then, he threw Yukai out of the ring with great force. At the same time, Qinchuan's figure continuously flashed in the arena. Every time he landed in front of Yukai, he controlled her movements and sent her step by step to the edge of the arena. Yukai, who was in the air, was anxious. She wanted to break free from Qinchuan's restraint, but no matter how hard she struggled, she could not break free from Qinchuan's seal on her spiritual energy. She was like an ordinary person without any power, allowing Qinchuan to do whatever he wanted. What is this? The commentator was dumbfounded by what was happening in the arena. Qinchuan actually sealed Yukai's spiritual energy. How'd he do it? Yukai's wind incarnation is like teleportation. She can move in an instant. In the face of Yukai's sudden attack, Qinchuan not only dodged her attack, but also sealed her spiritual energy with a backhand. He is simply too strong. If the commentator had not explained that Yukai's spiritual energy was sealed by Qinchuan, the audience would have thought that Yukai was going easy on Qinchuan. Without the support of spiritual energy, Yukai's body was not strong enough. She was no different from an ordinary person. Qinchuan could do whatever he wanted to her. In this way, the audience watched Yukai being sent to the edge of the arena by Qinchuan step by step, and then gently thrown out of the arena. It could be said that Qinchuan's series of actions were quite gentle and gentlemanly. However, Yukai was angry and not happy at all. She originally wanted to have a good fight with Qinchuan. Who would have thought that the result would be like this? The moment Yukai landed on the ground, the spiritual energy seal in her body disappeared. She looked at Qinchuan curiously and asked, "How did you seal my spiritual energy?" Previously, Yukai, who did not notice Qinchuan's actions. This seal was simply inexplicable. This move is actually very simple. Qinchuan chuckled and stretched out his finger to point at Yukai. A subtle force of thunder flowed out of Yukai's body and entered Qinchuan's body through Qinchuan's finger. Seeing this, Yukai asked in astonishment, "When did you inject this force of thunder into my body? Why didn't I notice it all?" This is an exquisite control method of the thunder manipulation charm array. If you were a little wary of me, it would not have been so effective. Qinchuan smiled and patted Yukai's head gently. If it were not for the fact that Yukai had no intention to fight him and was not on guard against him, it would be impossible for him to seal the spiritual energy in Yukai's body with the force of thunder of the thunder manipulation charm array without anyone noticing. Hearing Qinchuan's explanation, Yukai understood. The thunder manipulation charm array was a kind of charm array that used the force of thunder to make thousands of changes. Qinchuan could use the thunder manipulation charm array to turn the force of thunder into a cage. It was normal for him to seal her spiritual energy. Unfortunately, she was not on guard at that time and did not notice the infiltration of the force of thunder. Otherwise, she would have forced the force of thunder out of her body and not given it a chance to seal her spiritual energy. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. Yukai could only look at Qin Chuan with resentment. This guy made her lose so quickly. It was simply too shameful. Chapter 262. Just like that, Qin Chuan defeated Yukai in an extremely strange manner and won another match for the Black Moon Combat Academy. I announced that the winner of this match is Qin Chuan of the Black Moon Combat Academy. Following the referee's announcement, the audience burst into cheers. Although this match wasn't particularly exciting, Qin Chuan still displayed his demeanor as a powerhouse. Not only did he win easily, but he also acted like a gentleman and won the favor of many female audience members. Of course, there were those who felt that Qin Chuan's performance was good, but there were also those who felt that Qin Chuan's performance was bad, and some even spoke ill of him. Almost all of these people were Qin Haoshuan's loyal fans. They believed that Qin Chuan had refused Qin Haoshuan's invitation and had even said such outrageous words to him. This was simply unforgivable. They believed that such a person didn't deserve to win. However, such spectators were in the minority. The majority of the audience didn't have any bias and simply watched the match and enjoyed it. Therefore, those who cursed Qin Chuan were drowned out by the waves of cheers and didn't cause much of stir. Finally, it's the moment that everyone has been waiting for. Next up, the Black Moon Combat Academy's Qin Chuan will fight against Star Dragon's First Academy's Wang Wenxue. I can't help but mention the rumors about these two. The commentators were also very gossipy. They had done detailed research on the matters between Qin Chuan and Wang Wenxue. Qin Chuan and Wang Wenxue are both 19 years old this year and are from the state capital of Qing. It's worth mentioning that Zhou Lin from the Starry Sky Academy is also from the state capital of Qing. Moreover, the three of them graduated from the state capital's second high school. When I heard this news, I was very surprised. I never thought that a high school in a small city like the state capital of Qing could nurture three astonishing geniuses. It's a pity that the state capital's second high school has already closed down. Otherwise, it would be quite glorious right now. Between Qin Chuan and Wang Wenxue, who do you think has a higher chance of winning? I personally support Wang Wenxue. Although Qin Chuan is strong, I think Wang Wenxue is stronger. I'm the exact opposite of you. I support Qin Chuan more because this dark horse finally made it to the finals. I think he won't return empty-handed. Then let's wait and see. Let's see if the dark horse will win and the new king will ascend to the throne, or if the First Academy of Star Dragon will continue its undefeated legend. Just as the commentators were warming up the audience, Wang Wenxue had already stepped onto the stage and stood in front of Qin Chuan. Looking at the handsome and sunny young man standing in front of her, Wang Wenxue could not help but feel a little dazed. She could no longer remember the last time she faced Qin Chuan like this. Qin Chuan was also sighing with emotion. Wang Wenxue, who was once his good friend and now his opponent, was still the same as before. She was beautiful and moving, but at the same time, she made him feel like a stranger. She was no longer as close and familiar as before. I haven't seen you for more than a year. You seem to have grown taller. Wang Wenxue pursed her lips slightly. I don't know how to face you because of what happened in the past. I didn't even know what to say when I saw you previously. Wang Wenxue knew that she was in the wrong in the past. However, once something was done, it was not something that could be brushed aside with just an apology or an apology. Whenever she faced Qin Chuan, Wang Wenxue would always involuntarily recall the past, and Wang Wenxue hated her past self. You've changed too. I remember that you didn't like to smile in the past, and now you don't like to smile even more. You're a little cold. Qin Chuan looked at Wang Wenxue faintly and said, the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy might not be better than the second high school of the state capital of Qing. Wang Wenxue knew what Qin Chuan was referring to, and she also knew that Qin Chuan was right. When she was in the second high school of the state capital of Qing, she had already realized the huge gap between the status of commoners and aristocratic families. That was why she made some wrong choices because of the lack of cultivation resources. Now that she was in the first academy of Star Dragon Academy, the gap between commoners and aristocratic families not only narrowed, but also became more obvious. She was only in her first year of university, and in just a year of studying in the first academy of Star Dragon Academy, she had already met countless disciples from aristocratic families like Lu Cheng. Because of these encounters, her personality had changed. She became more and more indifferent and disliked interacting with others. These experiences, in her opinion, were trials that she had to go through. Only by going through all of this could she welcome a complete transformation and a new life. I won't make the same mistake twice. Wang Wenxue looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "Also, thank you for your reminder." Qin Chuan gently nodded and didn't say anything else. How Wang Wenxue wanted to go forward in the future was her own business, and he had no right to interfere. Seeing Wang Wenxue's attitude, he was very gratified because the young girl from before hadn't been dispirited. The finals of the freshman competition, Qin Chuan of the Black Moon Combat Academy against Wang Wenxue of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy. Begin. Toot toot toot. When the whistle sounded, Qin Chuan and Wang Wenxue didn't immediately make a move like the others. Instead, they stood opposite each other. Wang Wenxue looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "This battle is very important to me. I can't lose, so I will get my all." Similarly, many people are waiting for me to bring home the final victory, so I will give it my all as well. Qin Chuan smiled. "Let me see how strong the former goddess of the Second Academy has become." As he spoke, an azure glyph array appeared in front of Qin Chuan. It was the lightning manipulation glyph array that Qin Chuan was most proficient in. The moment the lightning manipulation glyph array appeared, Wang Wenxue let out a low roar. The spiritual energy in her body surged, and a tyrannical aura completely erupted. Her eyes and hair turned aqua blue, as bright and beautiful as the surface of a clear lake. However, it also emitted a pressure that made one's heart palpitate. Water Dragon Dance. A large amount of spiritual energy condensed around Wang Wenxue and turned into water spiritual energy. It then condensed into a water dragon that roared in the air and brazenly charged towards Qin Chuan. At the same time, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck the lightning dragon's body. It instantly turned into countless tiny lightning bolts that surged into the water dragon's body, causing the water dragon's charging body to stop. It began to struggle and roll in the air. Its momentum was extremely shocking. Walala! The water dragon suddenly expanded and exploded in the air, turning into water droplets that sprinkled down. Wang Wenxue's figure suddenly flickered. She used the water droplets as a mark and constantly changed her position. In an instant, she arrived behind Qin Chuan. With a light wave of her hand, the surrounding water droplets condensed into a long sword in her hand and directly pierced towards Qin Chuan's back. Chapter 263. Wang Wenxue's sword was almost unobstructed and smoothly pierced Qin Chuan's body. After succeeding, Wang Wenxue did not show any joy. Instead, she frowned. Sizzle. Qin Chuan's body, which was stabbed by Wang Wenxue, suddenly turned into a thunderbolt. It suddenly exploded in the air and turned into a cage, enveloping Wang Wenxue inside. When Wang Wenxue saw this, she almost instantly shifted her position, swapping places with the raindrops outside the cage and successfully leaving the cage. However, things were far from over. While Wang Wenxue was shifting, the power of thunder was also expanding its range of influence through the curtain of rain, chasing after Wang Wenxue. A battle of pursuit between lightning and water had thus begun. Wonderful. It's really wonderful. Commentator Miller watched the chase in the arena and exclaimed, whether it's Qin Chuan or Wang Wenxue, both of them can be said to have maximized their advantages. It can be said that neither of them is giving way to the other. That's right, and there's one more thing. I think that the water dragon that Wang Wenxue condensed at the beginning was deliberately designed to trap Qinchuan. Her original intention was to detonate the water dragon and create a rain curtain. Then, she would use the raindrops as a carrier to move and launch a sudden attack on Qinchuan. Even if Qinchuan reacted quickly and counterattacked, she could take advantage of the situation to move away through the raindrops. She could attack or retreat. It's perfect. However, Qinchuan is not to be trifled with. When the water dragon exploded and everyone's vision was limited, his main body hid in the dark. He used the Thunder Doppelganger to lure Wang Wenxue to launch a surprise attack and turn the Thunder Doppelganger into a cage to control Wang Wenxue. Although he did not succeed, he made Wang Wenxue's plan fail. It can be said that it was a very wonderful counterattack. However, I'm very curious. The arena is only so big. Where did Qinchuan hide his main body? The doubts of the commentators were also the doubts of the audience. Although the arena was big, there were no blind spots. Where could Qinchuan hide? At this moment, the chase on the stage was nearing its end. When the rain fell completely, the uncontrollable power of lightning chasing behind Wang Wenxue gradually dissipated in the air. Wang Wenxue could still use the water on the ground to move freely. It was no exaggeration to say that the stage had completely become Wang Wenxue's exclusive battlefield. However, until now, Wang Wenxue still did not see Qinchuan's figure. The situation is not good for Wang Wenxue. Qinchuan has been concealing himself since the beginning, and perhaps he's brewing a killing move. All of us know that Qinchuan is a formidable talisman formation master, and during this period of time, Qinchuan has sufficient time to inscribe a formidable talisman formation. Moreover, I suspect that the reason Qinchuan has been missing all this time is perhaps because he's hiding in an illusion array. I just don't know if Wang Wenxue can guess this. At this moment, the audience was also a little nervous. If Qinchuan was really hiding in an illusion array and wanted to end this match with a formidable talisman formation, then Wang Wenxue, who had not discovered Qinchuan's trace, would be in danger. In the arena, Wang Wenxue was also very clear in her heart that if she continued to delay, the situation would become more and more disadvantageous to her. Therefore, she had to find Qinchuan as soon as possible. An illusion array can deceive my vision, but it can't deceive my attacks. Wang Wenxue shouted in a low voice, and the spirit energy in her entire body surged. The water on the ground suddenly splashed and flew into the air under the control of Wang Wenxue's spirit energy. After that, it transformed into the shape of arrows and shot out in all directions of the arena, with Wang Wenxue as the center. Seeing this scene, everyone couldn't help but applaud Wang Wenxue's decision. Sweeping the arena with such an omnidirectional attack without any blind spots. Even if she couldn't force Qinchuan's body out, she would definitely be able to find the illusion array that Qinchuan was hiding in. The seemingly endless arrows covered the entire arena, and at the southeast corner of the arena, before the arrows touched the defensive talisman formation at the edge of the arena, they suddenly and strangely disappeared, and an empty space about 2 square meters in size appeared. Needless to say, everyone could see that Qinchuan was definitely hiding in this empty space. Almost at the same time, when she discovered this empty space, Wang Wenxue shouted in a low voice again, toppling mountains and overturning seas. Following Wang Wenxue's delicate shout, a monstrous wave suddenly emerged from the arena and brazenly rushed toward the southeast corner. At the same time, the empty space in the southeast corner gradually dissipated, and Qinchuan's figure slowly appeared. In front of Qinchuan, there was a colorful array diagram. 5 elements rotation talisman array combination. Activate. Qinchuan, who had been hiding for a long time, finally let out his powerful shout. The 6 talisman arrays in front of him slowly rotated, and one of the earthy yellow talisman arrays suddenly lit up. Suddenly, the sound of the wind and the howling of the sand in the arena were blocked by the huge wave that was rushing over. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. At this time, The huge wave and the sandstorm each occupied half of the arena, and they were clearly separated. The surging waves and the howling sandstorm set off a huge momentum, and the scene was extremely spectacular. Oh my God, what is this? Is this really something a foundation establishment cultivator can do? Commentator Wawa was stunned. He stared dumbfoundedly at the 6 talisman arrays in front of Qinchuan, and couldn't help but exclaim, "This is a talisman array combination? How terrifying! There are actually 6 talisman arrays. This is the first time I've seen such a talisman array combination. It's made up of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, as well as a thunder talisman array. It's so complicated and profound. This is definitely not the strongest power of this talisman array combination. Qinchuan must have shown mercy." Just as the commentators were exclaiming over the 5 elements rotation talisman array combination that Qinchuan had displayed, the audience was also stunned. Even those from the Black Moon Combat Academy who understood Qinchuan very well were dumbfounded. Their understanding of Qinchuan was still limited to thunder talisman arrays, and they never knew that Qinchuan was actually hiding such a huge killing weapon like the 5 elements rotation talisman array combination. This talisman array combination is very strong. Long Shao looked at the array diagram in front of Qinchuan with an extremely shocked expression. This kind of pressure, this kind of aura, had almost reached the standard of a rank 3 battle array. Where did he learn this kind of thing? Lu Zi's eyes widened. This talisman array combination can definitely display the power of a rank 3 battle array. Lan Shuxin sighed. This is Qinchuan. He's so strong that it makes people tremble in fear. At this moment, she couldn't help but rejoice once again. The grudges between the Lan family and Qinchuan had been written off, and there was even a possibility of them becoming friends. Otherwise, it would be terrifying to become enemies with a powerful battle array master like Qinchuan, who had a boundless future. Chapter 264. While the audience was shocked by the combination of talisman arrays in front of Qinchuan, Wang Wenxue, who was in the arena, felt extremely bitter. On the stage, it seemed like the giant wave and the sand were on equal footing, each occupying one side. However, in reality, this situation was deliberately created by Qinchuan. If Qinchuan wanted to, the sand could overpower the giant wave at any time, turning the stage into a desert. At this time, Wang Wenxue had already used all her spiritual energy to push the waves, but no matter how the waves rolled, they couldn't shake the sand's defense. The feeling of despair pierced Wang Wenxue's heart deeply. She lost. The huge waves gradually calmed down and stopped rolling. They slowly dissipated in the air, and the sand also slowly dissipated. The arena once again returned to its original clean and tidy state. It was as if everything that had happened before was just an illusion, and nothing had happened. Qinchuan dispersed the 5 elements rotation array formation and slowly walked to Wang Wenxue. Looking at the pale and weak Wang Wenxue, he pursed his lips and said, "Are you okay?" Wang Wenxue looked at Qinchuan with a complicated expression and said softly, "This time I lost. You won." Hearing Wang Wenxue admit defeat, Qinchuan wasn't very happy. He understood Wang Wenxue and knew that she was a very proud person. She would never lower her head and admit defeat. The reason why she chose to rely on the Liu family was because she desired better cultivation resources and wanted to go further on the path of cultivation. Now, she was the freshman representative of the First Academy of Star Dragon. With the strength she displayed, she should have easily led the First Academy of Star Dragon to first place in the freshman competition. You've already performed very well. No one will blame you. Qinchuan didn't know how to comfort Wang Wenxue. He only hoped that Wang Wenxue could relax and not feel too much pressure. No one will ever remember who took second place. The First Academy of Star Dragon has always held the top spot, but today they lost it in my hands. Wang Wenxue's eyes were lonely as she looked at the ground and whispered, "I'm not as good as you." After saying these words, Wang Wenxue turned around and slowly walked down the arena. As the loser, She no longer had the qualifications to stand on the arena. Now, it belonged to the winner. Wang Gan stood at the edge of the arena and looked at the dejected Wang Wenxue. He sighed and said in a clear voice, "I announce that the winner of this match is Qin Chuan of the Black Moon Combat Academy. The final winner of the finals is the Black Moon Combat Academy. Let us congratulate the Black Moon Combat Academy for taking first place in the freshman competition." As Wang Gan's eyes, the youth who was good at creating miracles, all of Star Dragon City. All the spectators were all cheering for the birth of a new king. The audience looked excitedly at Qin Chuan, this youth who was good at creating miracles. Let us use our warm applause and cheers to congratulate Qin Chuan and the Black Moon Combat Academy. For the Black Moon Combat Academy to have such a strong contestant like Qin Chuan, they definitely deserve to take first place in this year's freshman competition. That's right, we do need to congratulate the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, even though the first Academy of Star Dragon has lost, it's still a glorious defeat. After all, no one would have expected that such a monstrous contestant like Qin Chuan would appear in this year's 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. The strength he displayed, especially that last combination of talisman arrays, is simply unbelievably terrifying. As far as I know, this is the first time that the Black Moon Combat Academy has taken first place in the freshman competition. It really wasn't easy. The commentators, Wawa and Methriya, looked at the youth standing on the stage and sighed with emotion. This youth, who wasn't even 20 years old, had given them too many surprises and shocks in today's competition. Now that the dust has settled on the freshman competition, I'm suddenly looking forward to the official competition. If the Black Moon Combat Academy's results in the official competition aren't ideal, then perhaps Qin Chuan will participate in the official competition as a substitute. I'm really looking forward to seeing Qin Chuan clash with the other contestants in the official competition. Let's see what kind of sparks will fly. Although Qin Chuan's performance in the freshman competition could be said to be unrivaled, whether or not he will participate in the official competition and whether or not he can perform as well as he did in the official competition is something worth looking forward to. We're not cursing the Black Moon Combat Academy's results. We just don't want Qin Chuan's journey in the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament to end so quickly. That's right, we just hope to see this miraculous youth create even more miracles. At this moment, the stage was no longer isolated from the outside world. Qin Chuan could hear the frenzied shouts from the audience, as well as the commentators' sighs. He looked at the crowd before him, then at Chen Chongqing and the rest below the stage. He smiled and waved at them, asking them to go up the stage together. Seeing this, Chen Chongqing immediately rushed up the stage, as if all his injuries had been healed. He excitedly said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, we won. We're the champions. It's just the freshman competition. It's too early to say that we're the champions." Qin Chuan chuckled. He glanced at Blue Pool, who had just woken up, and Zhao Feihong. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and smiled. Brothers united. Seeing Qin Chuan's actions, Blue Pool and Chen Chongqing excitedly placed their hands on Qin Chuan's. Zhao Feihong was a little shy at first, but in the end he still placed his hand on Qin Chuan's hand. Together with Qin Chuan and the other two, they shouted, "Sharp enough to cut through gold. We're number 1." Below the stage, Wang Wenxue looked at Su Wenliang, who was in a sorry state, and Yu Kai'er, who didn't know whether to be happy or disappointed. She said softly, "Sorry to disappoint you. I lost." "It's okay." Yu Kai'er sighed and said to Wang Wenxue, "It's not your fault. It's all Qin Chuan's fault. He's too abnormal. Qin Chuan is indeed too strong. Even if we joined forces, we wouldn't be able to withstand his last combination of talismans." Su Wenliang immediately rushed over to watch the match after waking up. It could be said that he had witnessed the whole process of Wang Wenxue and Qin Chuan's fight. He could tell that Wang Wenxue had tried her best, but Qin Chuan was really too strong. His performance was too perfect. Just as Su Wenliang and Yu Kai'er were comforting Wang Wenxue to not be too sad, Tsang Shulan suddenly rushed over. She stared at Wang Wenxue with hatred and joy in her eyes. She sneered and said, Wang Wenxue, you're our school's sinner. You're the one who lost our school's first place in the freshman competition. Let's see if you still have the face to pretend to be virtuous when you return to school this time. How are you going to face the teachers and students in school? Hearing this, Wang Wenxue took a deep look at Sang Shulan and said, "You don't have to worry about my matters. You'd better consider what kind of impact you'll have on the school if you refuse to admit defeat." Chapter 265. The Sixth Grade Academy's freshman tournament has ended. Black Moon Combat Academy wins. Star Dragon's first academy loses first place. Black Moon Combat Academy wins the freshman tournament. Miraculous Youth Qin Chuan, high-spirited, leads team to consecutive victories, wins first place in the freshman tournament. After the freshman competition ended, the news of the finals covered the sky and covered the earth. It was even more sensational than any of the previous news. This time, it wasn't Star Dragon's first academy that had reached the top, but the Black Moon Combat Academy. Miraculous Youth Qin Chuan's name resounded through the streets and alleys of Star Dragon City. More than half of the Federation was talking about this youth who had left everyone in the dust in the freshman tournament. He had displayed strength that far surpassed his peers. In particular, the talisman array combination that Qin Chuan had inscribed at the last moment attracted a lot of attention. In the hotel, Duan Yusin sat on the sofa and stared at the crystal screen. She couldn't help but exclaim in admiration as she watched the arrayed diagram that had appeared in front of Qin Chuan. "Lin, this junior brother of yours is really terrifying. How did he inscribe such a complicated combination of glyphs?" Duan Yusin sighed and exclaimed, "This array combination includes the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. There's even the thunder element. He can actually perfectly fuse so many elements together. It's simply too abnormal." Zhou, who was sitting to the side, looked at the paused image on the crystal screen with a subtle expression. She said to Duan Yusin, "This is nothing to him." Zhou understood Qin Chuan quite well. When Qin Chuan was still in the body tempering stage, he had already reached the level of materializing a domain. A 5-element array combination was nothing to Qin Chuan. Seeing that Zhou wasn't surprised by Qin Chuan's exaggerated performance, Duan Yusin couldn't help but roll her eyes and say, "I really have to hand it to you. Qin Chuan's abnormal performance didn't even cause the slightest fluctuation in your emotions. Did you already know that he was this abnormal? With the relationship between the two of you, it's not impossible. All right, let's not look at these things anymore. Let's study our opponents for the official competition." The freshman competition was over, and the official competition was about to begin. They couldn't afford to be careless in the face of powerful opponents. Affiliated University of the Xiantian sect. In the training room, Chen Aochu's eyes were slightly cold as he watched the battle on the crystal screen. When the combination of the 5 elements rotation glyph array appeared in front of Qin Chuan, his face could not help but become extremely gloomy. Even on the other side of the crystal screen, he seemed to be able to feel the enormous power of the combination of the 5-element cycle rune arrays. The power that should not be controlled by a building foundation stage cultivator made him feel nervous and scared, and he almost couldn't help but tremble. He was merely in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage, a poor kid from the slums. What right did he have to be so outstanding and so strong? He was the young master of the Black Heaven sect. How could he be afraid of such a piece of trash? The freshman competition is over. Next, it's time for the official competition. Chen Aochu took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Perhaps Qin Chuan did not even have the chance to participate in the official competition. There was nothing for him to worry about. Qin family, Lake Pavilion. After the finals of the freshman competition ended, Qin Ju came here. He looked at the sparkling lake with a complicated gaze. His mood was completely calm. "Sister, I hope that he can be like that person back then. He is so talented that he can suppress his generation. However, when I really see him blossom with boundless radiance, I suddenly feel a little scared. I also hope that he can be ordinary and live a carefree life. I'm really scared." I'm scared that Qin Chuan will end up like that person back then. In the end, he won't have a good ending and will implicate the people around him. If I were in the nascent soul stage now, I would do my best to protect him and kill whoever dares to touch him. However, I am only in the peak gold core stage. The nascent soul stage is still far away. What should I do? Qin Zhu's face was full of worry. He really didn't know what to do. Also in the Qin family, in Qin Haoshuan's exclusive villa, when he saw Qin Chuan standing in the arena and shining with boundless radiance, he did not feel angry. Instead, he felt that things had become more interesting. When a person stands at a high place, it will hurt even more when he falls. I really hope that he, the dark horse of the freshman competition, can make some waves in the official competition. That way, when I defeat him, I will feel a greater sense of accomplishment. Qin Haoshuan looked coldly at Qin Chuan's figure on the crystal screen. His expression was cold, and his killing intent was soaring. After the freshman competition ended, the Black Moon Combat Academy immediately held a press conference to satisfy the media's desire for interviews. However, when the excited media rushed to the scene, they found that the most dazzling contestant in the freshman competition, Qin Chuan, was not present at the press conference. Naturally, the media was incomparably disappointed with this. Dear friends, because Qin Chuan overdrew his spiritual power during the competition, there are some problems with his body. He is currently receiving treatment, so he can't accept any interviews for the time being. However, I have a basic understanding of Qin Chuan's situation. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Lan Weiwei smiled as she faced the media. She gave a reasonable explanation for Qin Chuan's absence. Hearing Lan Weiwei's words, a media reporter immediately asked, "Teacher Lan, what kind of talisman array combination did Qin Chuan inscribe at the end of the competition?" This was a question that many media reporters were very concerned about. Everyone pricked up their ears and waited for Lan Weiwei's answer. The 5 elements rotation talisman array combination was formed by the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. As for the specifics, I can't answer because this is classified information. Every cultivator had their own secret killing move that would not be easily revealed. Qin Chuan's 5 elements rotation talisman array combination was so powerful that it was naturally one of his secret killing moves. Of course, Lan Weiwei could not reveal everything just because a media reporter asked. Moreover, her understanding was very limited. Teacher Lan, will student Qin Chuan participate in the official competition? This was another question that the media reporters were concerned about. With the strength that Qin Chuan had displayed, it was definitely more than enough for him to participate in the official competition. Unless the official representatives of the Black Moon Combat Academy were all stronger than Qin Chuan, that would be too exaggerated. I can't be sure at the moment, because it depends on the performance of the official representatives as well as Qin Chuan's condition. Lan Weiwei smiled. She answered all of the questions, but her answers were very vague. In the end, it was the same as not saying anything. Now that the Black Moon Combat Academy has taken first place in the newcomer competition and obtained 20 points, what is your goal for the official competition? Lan Weiwei seriously considered this question for a moment, then solemnly replied, I can't be sure at the moment. Media reporters. Chapter 266. In Star Dragon City, Qin Chuan was still wearing a mask and sunglasses as he slowly walked on the street. His eyes were casually looking at the pedestrians and scenery on the street. Currently, the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament could be said to be the hottest topic right now. No matter where he went, he could hear people talking about the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament. And as the miracle youth, he was naturally the topic of discussion. I'll bet with you guys that if the Black Moon Combat Academy doesn't perform well in the official tournament, Qin Chuan will definitely be a substitute. A slightly plump youth solemnly vowed. He was clearly Qin Chuan's loyal fan. Hoodlum's words make some sense, but I feel that Qin Chuan's performance in the newcomers competition might not be as strong in the official tournament. You should know that those who can participate in the official tournament are not simple. The skinny youth with glasses agreed with the plump youth's words. but he felt that Qinchuan's appearance might not be able to improve the Black Moon Combat Academy's performance. After all, the Black Moon Combat Academy's overall strength was still too weak. It wouldn't be easy for Qinchuan to carry 4 people by himself. Qinchuan paused beside the 2 youths before smiling and walking forward. As for whether or not he would participate, Qinchuan did not want to think too much about it. He knew that he would definitely participate. Even if the Black Moon Combat Academy did not want him to participate, there would definitely be some people who would create an opportunity for him to participate. After all, he had offended quite a few people. Unknowingly, Qinchuan walked to the entrance of a hotel. Seeing the familiar hotel in front of him, he froze for a moment before walking in without hesitation. After entering the hotel, Qinchuan directly took the elevator to the 40th floor. When the elevator opened on the 40th floor, Qinchuan coincidentally saw the person he wanted to see. "Senior sister, what a coincidence." Qinchuan smiled as he looked at Zhou Lin, who was standing outside the elevator. "I unknowingly walked here, so I wanted to come and see you." Outside the elevator, Zhou Lin saw that Qinchuan had suddenly appeared and was somewhat happy. She smiled at Qinchuan and then said to Duan Yusin, who was standing beside her with a mysterious smile, "You go eat by yourself. Qinchuan and I are going out for a walk." Duan Yusin, who had originally wanted to be a third wheel, could not help but roll her eyes. This guy really did not give her any face. Although they said that they were going out for a walk, they were actually going to the restaurant opposite the hotel to eat. Qinchuan and Zhou Lin sat in front of the window. "Qinchuan Zess, I watched the competition. You performed very well, especially the 5 elements circle charm array combination at the end. Even I might not have been able to block it. It was really strong." Zhou Lin had never been stingy with praises, especially for Qinchuan. If she felt that Qinchuan's performance was good, she would definitely say it. It was not only to encourage Qinchuan, but also to let Qinchuan see her approval of him. Qinchuan chuckled and said, "It's just a newcomer competition. If it was the official competition, I might not have been able to perform as well as I did." In the end, the newcomer competition was just a warm-up competition. The real highlight was the official competition. All along, the ranking competition of the 6 great academies had only been referring to the official competition. Now, he was being covered by a large number of media reporters. Topics about him could be heard everywhere. It seemed that he was in the limelight, but once the official competition began, no one would pay attention to him anymore. This was because there would definitely be people who would perform more horribly than him in the official competition. For example, Qin Haoshuan. Zhou Lin looked deeply at Qinchuan and said, "Don't belittle yourself. I understand you. At least among the people I know, you're the first person who can manifest in embryonic domain at this stage. You will definitely shine brightly in the future." Zhou Lin had always held great confidence in Qinchuan. Whether it was Qin Haoshuan or Chen Aochu, Zhou Lin felt that they had only become outstanding because of their family background. They did not have the qualifications to be compared to Qinchuan, who had relied on his own strength to become a genius. "Senior sister, have you always thought of me like this?" Qinchuan smiled. "To be honest, I'm under a lot of pressure. Only when there is pressure will there be motivation." Zhou Lin said seriously to Qinchuan, "I feel that with the overall strength of the Black Moon Combat Academy, it will be difficult for them to move forward in the official competition. At that time, you will truly feel the pressure." During these days, other than watching Qinchuan's matches, Zhou Lin had been researching the opponents in the official competition. It was not an exaggeration to say that she had thoroughly researched the official representatives of the Black Moon Combat Academy. In her mind, the overall strength of the Black Moon Combat Academy's official representatives could only be ranked 4th among the 6 great academies. If they were lucky, they would only be ranked 3rd. If they were unlucky, they might suffer consecutive defeats and be eliminated. When Qinchuan heard this, he curiously asked Zhou Lin, "What do you think about the strength of our Black Moon Combat Academy's official representatives?" "I want to talk about Lan Shuxin and Han Ting. In my opinion, the 2 of them are just there to make up the numbers. Lu Zi is an illusion array master, and her actual combat strength is weak. Whether or not she can win depends on her luck." Long Xiao is the Long clan's main wife's daughter and a powerful battle array master. If she can inscribe a battle array, there will be very few people who can be her opponent. As for that Baiyu, to be honest, she gives me the strongest sense of threat. Her strength might not be any weaker than yours. When she was commenting on these people, Zhou Lin's words could be said to be very blunt. In her eyes, the two second-year students, Lan Shuxin and Han Ting, were just there to make up the numbers. As for Zhou Lin's opinion of Baiyu, Qin Chuan expressed his agreement. If Baiyu really did not have any misgivings and fought without restraint, then perhaps Zhou Lin really would not be her opponent. Baiyu is a rather special person. Senior sister, if you meet her in the competition, you should be careful. Although Zhou Lin's relationship with Qin Chuan was very good, Baiyu was still an official representative of the Black Moon Combat Academy. She was also his friend, so he could only tell Zhou Lin this much. When Zhou Lin heard this, she lightly raised her eyebrows and asked, "You think I will lose? There is no such thing as an invincible general in this world." Senior sister, everyone has the possibility of losing. Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Sometimes, there is no need to be too obsessed with winning or losing. As long as you show what you need to show, then it will be fine. Let's not talk about this anymore. Cheers." Zhou Lin raised her wine cup and said to Qin Chuan, "Let us first congratulate you for obtaining first place in the freshman competition. As for the official competition, if you're not participating, then come and cheer for me." "Of course." Qin Chuan laughed. "Let us congratulate the Starry Sky Academy in advance for obtaining first place in the 6th Grade Academy's ranking competition under the leadership of the Queen of Blades." Chapter 267. When Qin Chuan returned to the office, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. At this time, most of the media reporters who had gathered at the entrance of the office had already dispersed, so Qin Chuan easily mixed in. Originally, Qin Chuan thought that the office would be very lively and that everyone should be having a party. However, to his surprise, the office was exceptionally quiet. On the contrary, the training room was brightly lit. When Qin Chuan walked into the training room, he saw that everyone was training in the training room. Everyone's expression was extremely serious. Obviously, they were not being perfunctory. Seeing this lively scene, although Qin Chuan was surprised, he was more gratified. Everyone did not slack off just because they won the championship of the new student competition. They still worked hard to cultivate, which was a very good thing. "Boss, you're back." Zhao Feihong, who had just finished a wave of weight-bearing training, saw Qin Chuan come back. He wiped his sweat and came to Qin Chuan's side. He said somewhat embarrassedly, "Boss, I was a little excited to see your performance under the arena today. After I came back, I advanced to the foundation establishment stage." Hearing Zhao Feihong's words, Qin Chuan found that the fluctuations of Zhao Feihong's aura had obviously become much stronger and unstable. "Then I really have to congratulate you." Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Zhao Feihong, "This trip was not in vain. If I could have advanced a little earlier, maybe I could have gone on the stage." In fact, Zhao Feihong still had some regrets in his heart. Seeing everyone show their own style in the arena, he was also eager to fight to prove himself. However, with his strength at the peak of the 13th level of the Qi refining stage at that time, going on the stage would only be a joke. There will be another chance in the future. Qin Chuan patted Zhao Feihong's shoulder and smiled. Maybe when the official representatives are all injured and can't participate, it will be time for us substitutes to go on the stage. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhao Feihong did not know what to say. Official representatives are all injured? Is this a curse? Qin Chuan, nothing good comes out of your filthy mouth. It was unknown when Long Xiao had walked over. She fiercely rolled her eyes at Qin Chuan. Clearly, she had heard what Qin Chuan had just said and was very unhappy. When Qin Chuan saw Long Xiao walking over, he grinned and said, "The official competition will begin the day after tomorrow. How are your preparations going?" Hard to say. Long Xiao, on the other hand, did not appear very confident. To be honest, whether or not we can successfully advance depends on who our opponents are. Among the 6 great academies, other than the Black Moon Combat Academy, The strongest was naturally the first academy of the Star Dragon Academy, followed by the Federation's Military University and the Cosmic Sky Academy. The Divine Sword Academy and the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities were not weak either. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that no matter who the Black Moon Combat Academy encountered, it would be a fierce battle. It was impossible for them to win easily. When Qin Chuan heard this, he muttered to himself for a moment before saying to Long Xiao, "Actually, the most suitable opponents for us should be the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities. Only by facing them can we have a chance of advancing directly." Long Xiao looked at Qin Chuan with some astonishment and asked, "Why do you say that? Could it be that you look down on Chen Aochu?" By now, everyone basically knew that Chen Aochu was Chen Chongqing's half-brother and that their relationship was not harmonious. However, this did not mean that Chen Aochu was easy to deal with, right? The Divine Sword Academy has the little sword deity Su Kuang, the Federation's Military University has Shimen Bei, and the Cosmic Sky Academy has Senior Zhou Lin. I won't talk about the first academy of the Star Dragon Academy, but how do you think Chen Aochu compares to them? Qin Chuan seriously looked at Long Xiao. Although he did not feel that by you, Long Xiao and Lu Zi were weaker than the few people he mentioned, but if they could meet the weaker Chen Aochu, then why would they have to face those stronger ones first? Long Xiao was silent for a moment, then bitterly smiled and said, "What you said makes some sense. However, we can't decide which opponents we will face. It depends on the results of the lot drawing. Among the 5 great academies, there was only a 20% chance of drawing the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities. Logically speaking, it was really too low. Yi family. Old man, if you don't agree to my request today, then I will sever all ties with you." A young girl with a veil on her face stood in front of a white-haired old man and shouted loudly. It was obviously a very willful and unruly action, but it made people feel that it was pleasing to the eye. "My good granddaughter, the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament is very important. How can I casually interfere with the lot drawing ceremony?" The old man was somewhat helpless. He really couldn't understand why his granddaughter would actually make such a rude request of him. Once people found out that their Yi family had tampered with the lot drawing ceremony of the 6 Great Academies ranking competition, their Yi family's many years of reputation would be ruined. "Grandfather, I just want you to help me arrange the first academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy together. Is that so difficult?" The young girl squatted in front of the old man and begged, "You've always doted on me the most, so just agree to my request." Looking at his spoiled granddaughter, the old man clearly could not take it anymore. He bitterly smiled and helplessly said, "I can help you arrange it, but you have to tell me what you want." The young girl was pleasantly surprised when she heard this. She immediately said to the old man, "Grandfather, you agree to my request? The premise is that you have to tell me what your goal is." The old man sighed and said, "With the strength of the first academy of Star Dragon Academy, even if they don't draw the weakest Black Moon Combat Academy, they can still easily advance to the semifinals. Grandfather, my goal is actually very simple. I want to crush the Black Moon Combat Academy and send them to the revival round." The young girl smiled and said to the old man, "I've already told you my goal, so you can't go back on your word." The old man looked at the young girl meaningfully and said, "It's that simple." "Of course." The young girl nodded vigorously. "It's that simple. All right, grandfather agrees." The old man smiled. "This time, I'll throw away my old face and help you fulfill your wish." "Thank you, grandfather." The young girl had achieved her goal and happily left. The old man remained in the living room and pondered for a long time. Suddenly, he said in a low voice, "Ahu, do you think that Qing Ning wants to send the Black Moon Combat Academy to the revival round because she wants to force Qin Chuan to fight?" As the old man's voice fell, a thin figure slowly appeared behind him and respectfully said in a low voice, "Recently, the young miss has been investigating Qin Chuan. Although Qin Chuan's performance in the newcomer competition was strong, he might not be able to participate in the official competition. If the Black Moon Combat Academy is forced into a desperate situation, then Qin Chuan might be a substitute. If that's the case, Then Qing Ning's true goal is indeed Qin Chuan. The old man narrowed his eyes and asked, "What do you think of Qin Chuan?" Ahu was silent for a moment and then said in a low voice, "He's not a good match." Chapter 268. On the 28th of May, the lot drawing ceremony for the 6th grade academies was about to begin. Compared to the new student competition, the lot drawing ceremony for the official competition was much livelier and more people paid attention to it. It was only 8 in the morning, but thousands of people had already gathered in front of the crystal screens in Star Dragon City. Countless people were watching the live broadcast of the lot drawing ceremony at home. The viewership was much higher than the new student competition. At this time, the official representatives of the 6th grade academies had already gathered in the Red Dragon Gymnasium. They stood on the stage and calmly faced the audience. The camera started from the first academy of Star Dragon City and swept past everyone. The first person to appear was the Qin family's genius, Qin Haoshuan. The moment Qin Haoshuan appeared, the entire Star Dragon City burst into cheers. Most of the cheers were from young girls. They liked people like Qin Haoshuan, who had an outstanding background, outstanding talent, and extremely handsome looks. The next person to appear was the Yi family's Yi Qingning. Even though Yi Qingning was wearing a veil, it couldn't hide her peerless beauty. Through the crystal screens, everyone could feel the astonishing charm of Yi Qingning. They couldn't help but look infatuated. Even the girls couldn't resist Yi Qingning's charm. Other than Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning, the audience was much calmer when they saw the other contestants. After all 30 contestants were shown on camera, it was time for the lot drawing ceremony to officially begin. The lot drawing ceremony for the official competition wasn't much different from the new student competition. It was still 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, and 6. Under the arrangement of the education department, the first person to draw was the captain of the first academy of Star Dragon City, Qin Haoshuan. Qin Haoshuan slowly stepped forward and calmly drew the number 1 from the box. Su Kuang from the Divine Sword Academy stepped forward and drew lot number 3. Chen Aochu from the Black Heaven Sex Affiliated University drew lot number 4. Shimin Bei from the Federal Military University drew lot number 5. Zhou Lin from the Cosmic Star Academy drew lot number 6. Only the second lot was left. Only the Black Moon Combat Academy had yet to draw lots. The result was already decided. The Black Moon Combat Academy would draw the number 2 and face the first academy of Star Dragon City tomorrow. Just yesterday, the Black Moon Combat Academy had defeated the Star Dragon Academy's number 1 academy and obtained first place in the freshman competition. Today, the Black Moon Combat Academy had unexpectedly met the Star Dragon Academy's number 1 academy once again. It had to be said that this was fate. For a moment, many people were looking forward to the clash between the Black Moon Combat Academy and Star Dragon's number 1 academy. They all wanted to see if the Black Moon Combat Academy could once again amaze the world and defeat Star Dragon's number 1 academy. Naturally, there were also many spectators who wanted to see Star Dragon's first academy beat up the Black Moon Combat Academy and restore their reputation. Han Ting, who had returned with lot number 2, had an extremely bitter expression on his face. He had never thought that the Black Moon Combat Academy would be left with lot number 2. Seeing Han Ting's ugly expression, Lan Shuxin sighed helplessly and said, "There's nothing we can do about it. Didn't we make mental preparations long ago?" With the Black Moon Combat Academy's strength, no matter who they faced, it would be a fierce battle. It didn't matter who they faced. Isn't it just Star Dragon's first academy? If Qin Chuan can defeat them, then so can we. That's right. We'll only know after we fight. We haven't even fought yet. As the captain, you can't be discouraged. Let's go. Even if we lose, we still have the revival round. Don't be afraid. Hearing everyone's words, Han Ting felt the pressure on his body lessen slightly. Although the official representatives of Star Dragon's number 1 academy all looked very strong, he shouldn't be so worried before they fought. He should be filled with confidence in everyone. On the other side, Qin Haoshuan saw the Black Moon Combat Academy's reaction and couldn't help but sneer. He said to the people around him, "I won't be coming to the competition tomorrow morning." If their opponents were other academies, Qin Haoshuan might have been interested. However, against the Black Moon Combat Academy, unless Qin Chuan went up on stage, he wouldn't be interested at all. Hearing Qin Haoshuan's words, everyone understood what he meant. Smiles appeared on their faces one after another. Haoshuan, don't worry. You don't need to fight against the Black Moon Combat Academy. When the time comes, we'll naturally send them to the revival round. It's a pity that there's still a revival round. Otherwise, we'll directly send them back to the Black Moon Mountain Range. Ha ha. Seeing everyone's relaxed attitude, Yi Qingning couldn't help but frown. The Black Moon Combat Academy still has a few powerful people. Be careful of your attitude. She really hated Qin Haoshuan's arrogance. Hearing Yi Qingning's words, the few people who had been laughing impudently immediately restrained themselves and became serious. Now that Yi Qingning had spoken, whoever lost to the Black Moon Combat Academy on the arena tomorrow would be in an awkward situation. In the office, Qin Chuan watched the entire process of the lot drawing ceremony through the live broadcast. He didn't know what to say about the Black Moon Combat Academy's luck. If it were up to me, you should just go up on stage and get rid of all these people. Wang Bo, who was sitting beside Qin Chuan, patted Qin Chuan's shoulder and smiled. I don't think anyone from the First Academy of Star Dragon is your opponent. Qin Chuan rolled his eyes at Wang Bo and said, we have to believe in everyone's strength. Also, I'm just a substitute, not an official representative. Before the official representative loses, I won't go up on stage. Qin Chuan wouldn't look down on the official representative just because he had shocked everyone in the freshman competition. If there wasn't a need for him, he wouldn't want to go up on stage. After all, everyone only had one chance to participate in the 6th grade academy's ranking competition. Everyone was eager to prove their strength in the arena. As a comrade, he should believe in his comrade. That Qin Haoshuan, I feel annoyed whenever I see him. Wang Bo snorted and said, if you have a chance to go up on stage, remember to beat him up. People like him who think they're great are the most annoying. Qin Chuan knew that Wang Bo hated Qin Haoshuan because of how Qin Haoshuan had tried to recruit him. He chuckled at Wang Bo and said, I promise you that if I have the chance to go up on stage, I'll definitely beat him up. Well done. Wang Bo laughed loudly and high-fived Qin Chuan. Blue Pool and Chun Chongxing looked at each other helplessly as they watched Qin Chuan and Wang Bo. These two fellows were laughing so happily that those who didn't know would think that they had already defeated the First Academy of Star Dragon. Tomorrow's opening battle would really affect everyone's hearts. Chapter 269. After the lot drawing ceremony ended, the official matches would begin at 9 a.m. the next day. The first match would be between the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy. This was a match that everyone had their eyes on. On one side was the First Academy of Star Dragon, who had held first place for many years, and on the other side was the Black Moon Combat Academy, who had emerged as a new force in the new student competition. At this time, many spectators wanted to see if the official representatives of the Black Moon Combat Academy could win as powerfully as the new students. If they lost too badly, they would be criticized greatly. Everyone returned to the office from the Red Dragon Stadium. Although they were smiling, their smiles were extremely forced. Qin Chuan, who had come to greet everyone, saw this scene and felt somewhat helpless. In this kind of situation, anything he said would be inappropriate. Qin Chuan, come here for a moment. Feng Zhu suddenly waved at Qin Chuan, indicating that Qin Chuan should follow him to the side for a chat. Qin Chuan saw this and followed Feng Zhu to the side. When they reached a place where there was no one else, Feng Zhu turned to look at Qin Chuan and sighed. You saw it just now, right? Everyone's mood is not very high. Your strong performance in the new student competition has put a lot of pressure on everyone. Qin Chuan nodded and said helplessly, I also didn't expect that everyone would meet the First Academy of Star Dragon in the first match. In Qin Chuan's eyes, other than the First Academy of Star Dragon, they could fight against anyone they met. However, they just had to meet the First Academy of Star Dragon, which was the most difficult to deal with. It could only be said that their luck was extremely bad. I know that you are stronger than Lan Shuxin and Han Ting, but in tomorrow's match, I don't want you to be a substitute. Feng Zhu looked seriously at Qin Chuan and said, I want to give everyone a chance. I want to believe in everyone just this once. Qin Chuan laughed and said, to be honest, I think so too. Hearing Qin Chuan's answer, Zhu Feng chuckled. It's great that you can think like this. However, you have to be mentally prepared. If we lose tomorrow, we will definitely enter the revival round. At that time, we may need you. If you can't continue to create miracles and lead us to break out of the revival round, it may have a great impact on your reputation. So, I want to ask for your opinion now. When everyone needs you, are you willing to stand up and be the savior? Zhu Feng knew that this was very unfair to Qin Chuan and that it would put a lot of pressure on Qin Chuan. However, there was no way for him to have the best of both worlds. If the Black Moon Combat Academy really did enter the revival round, then their opponents would not necessarily be weak. If they were defeated, then their journey in the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament would come to an end. This was not something that Zhu Feng wanted to see happen. Since they were able to take first place in the freshman competition, then they definitely had hopes of becoming champions in the official competition. All of this depended on Qin Chuan's performance. Therefore, Qin Chuan's attitude was very important. In response to Zhu Feng's serious inquiry, Qin Chuan smiled and said, actually, I'm very willing to contribute to the Academy's honor. No matter who my opponents are, I will do my best and not leave behind any regrets. Hearing Qin Chuan's answer, Zhu Feng felt relieved. At the same time, he also felt guilty towards Qin Chuan. This was because he felt that this was too unfair to Qin Chuan. Seeing the guilty expression on Zhu Feng's face, Qin Chuan reached out and patted Zhu Feng's arm. Senior, you don't have to feel guilty towards me. This is what I should do and what I must do. Even if today's events hadn't happened, Qin Chuan would have definitely taken action when the Black Moon Combat Academy was in a desperate situation. This was because his goal wasn't as simple as taking first place in the ranking competition. His true goal was to defeat Qin Haoshuan. Although he wouldn't have the opportunity to fight Qin Haoshuan in the first match tomorrow, the two of them would definitely clash on the road to becoming the champion. Thank you, Qin Chuan. No matter what, Zhu Feng was very grateful towards Qin Chuan. If anyone were to speak ill of Qin Chuan, he would be the first to disagree. After chatting with Zhu Feng, Qin Chuan walked towards the cultivation room. Just as he had expected, the official representatives weren't in the mood to rest when they were about to face a crucial match tomorrow. They were all working hard to cultivate. Looking at the solemn expressions on everyone's faces, Qin Chuan's mood couldn't help but become heavy. Everyone is under a lot of pressure. Chen Changxing walked to Qin Chuan's side and sighed. Although no one has said it out loud, I can see that they are all holding back their energy. They want to defeat the First Academy tomorrow. Defeating the First Academy of Star Dragon was easier said than done. Not to mention Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning, just the other 3 would be difficult to deal with. Jiang Wudi and Yuman are both in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Drizzt is even at the great circle of the Foundation Establishment realm. Even Bai Yu wouldn't dare to say that she could win against these 3, let alone the others. On paper, the First Academy of Star Dragon is simply too strong. Just thinking about it made Chen Changxing feel that there was no hope for them to win tomorrow's match. Unless Bai Yu was like Qin Chuan, going all out and winning consecutive matches. However, Qin Chuan's opponents were all freshmen, and the strongest among them was only in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. On the other hand, the weakest official representative of the First Academy of Star Dragon was in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. They were 2 whole stages higher than Bai Yu. The difference was simply too great. Where there is a will, there is a way. Qin Chuan also knew that tomorrow would be a tough battle. At this time, he still needed to encourage everyone and not say anything discouraging. Chen Changxing also understood Qin Chuan's meaning. He sighed again and turned to leave. Qin Chuan walked towards Bai Yu, who was meditating. Qin Chuan's arrival woke Bai Yu, who was immersed in cultivation. She looked up at Qin Chuan and said, "You're here." Qin Chuan sat down in front of Bai Yu and said, "In tomorrow's match, don't expose yourself too much. Bai Yu's expression changed slightly when she heard this. She whispered, if I don't go all out, I will lose. I know I will lose, but there is still the revival match in me. Qin Xuan said seriously to Bai Yu, if you expose yourself, you will be in great danger. Therefore, you must protect yourself well. Bai Yu fell silent. She didn't immediately agree with Qin Xuan because she didn't want to lose. Qin Xuan saw through Bai Yu's thoughts, so he gave her a strong dose of medicine. He said seriously, think about your clansmen. They are all waiting for you to save them. If you are in danger because of a moment of victory, what will happen to them? Hearing this, Bai Yu's expression immediately became firm. I know. I will learn to endure. Chapter 270. On May 29th, at 8 in the morning, the Black Moon Combat Academy's group left the office and entered the Red Dragon Gymnasium through the special passage for the contestants. At this time, the Red Dragon Gymnasium was already filled to the brim. Compared to the newcomer competition, the arena for the official competition was much wider, making it more convenient for the contestants to perform. The referee had also been replaced by a cultivator of the late gold course stage. Even the host had changed from a handsome young man with witty remarks to a beautiful woman in a long dress, attracting the attention of countless people. In the preparation area, when the 5 people from the Black Moon Combat Academy arrived, the people from the First Academy of Star Dragon had also arrived. However, there were only 4 of them. Qin Haoshuan had said yesterday that he wouldn't be coming, and he really hadn't. When he saw the Black Moon Combat Academy's group arrive, Jiang Wudi sneered and asked, what? That miraculous youth of yours doesn't plan to participate? The Black Moon Combat Academy's group ignored Jiang Wudi's provocation. Jiang Wudi didn't get angry when he saw that no one was paying attention to him. He chuckled and continued, Qin Haoshuan won't be coming today, so there are only 4 of us. Maybe Junior Yi won't be coming either. Just the 3 of us will be enough to easily defeat you. When he heard Jiang Wudi's words, Han Ting's face couldn't help but turn gloomy. Qin Haoshuan wasn't coming, which meant that he was looking down on them. You can act all you want now. When the 4 of you are defeated, I want to see if Qin Haoshuan can make it in time. Lu Zi coldly snorted and retorted. She didn't care if her opponent was strong or not. She could lose in the arena, but she couldn't lose in an argument. You must be Lu Zi. Suddenly, Yi Qingning, who was sitting quietly at the side, raised her eyes and looked at Lu Zi. Her bright and clear eyes revealed a hint of curiosity. When Lu Zi heard this, she turned to look at Yi Qingning and couldn't help but be stunned. Although she couldn't see Yi Qingning's face clearly, her eyes made her feel that Yi Qingning was extremely beautiful. She was indeed worthy of the title of Star Dragon Goddess. I'm Lu Zi. Do you know me? Not really, but I've heard of you. I know that you have a good relationship with Qin Xuan, so I'm a little curious about you. Hearing Yi Qingning's answer, Lu Zi couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. She didn't expect Yi Qingning to be curious about her because of her relationship with Qin Xuan. When did Qin Xuan contact Yi Qingning? To be honest, I don't particularly like that Qin Haoshuan either. I hope that you all can perform well and defeat all of them so that Qin Haoshuan can rush over here. If he's late, then it'll be our loss. Yi Qingning spoke casually, but it made Jiang Wudi and the other 2's expressions change. Junior Sister Yi, even if the 3 of us lose, don't we still have you? Yu Man smiled at Yi Qingning and said, who doesn't know that Junior Sister Yi and Junior Brother Qin are both peerless geniuses of the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy? With you here, they won't be able to defeat us. Yi Qingning glanced at Yu Man indifferently and said, since you know that Qin Haoshuan and I are both peerless geniuses, then Qin Haoshuan doesn't have to show up. Why should I fight on the stage? Do you think that I'm not as good as him? Hearing Yi Qingning's question, Yu Man couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. Was this a competition? Yi Qingning didn't care about the change in Yu Man's expression and said indifferently, if the 3 of you lose, then I won't fight on the stage. I'll directly enter the revival round. I'm not afraid of losing face, but I don't know if Qin Haoshuan is afraid of losing face. Hearing this, Jiang Wudi and the other two smiled bitterly. Qin Haoshuan wasn't easy to get along with, and Yi Qingning wasn't easy to get along with either. The three of them felt really uncomfortable being stuck in the middle. On the other side, when the Black Moon Combat Academy students saw this scene, they felt rather strange. Who would have thought that the relationship between Yi Qingning and Qin Haoshuan would be so bad? They even had to compete whether or not they would fight. If Qin Haoshuan really didn't show up, and they defeated Jiang Wudi and the other two, wouldn't that mean that they could win this competition? Of course, everyone was just thinking about it. After all, it wasn't easy to defeat Jiang Wudi and the other two. But now that they saw the hope of winning, their mood wasn't as heavy as before. No one knew who secretly sent a message to Qin Haoshuan, but when it was less than 10 minutes before 9 o'clock, Qin Haoshuan's figure appeared in the preparation area. "Qingning, it's my fault this time. I neglected your feelings." When Qin Haoshuan appeared, he immediately went to Yi Qingning and apologized to her. His attitude was rather gentle and sincere, which was completely different from his previous arrogant and conceited behavior. Of course, those who knew Qin Haoshuan well knew that there were millions of women in this world, and only Yi Qingning could make him so gentle. However, Yi Qingning didn't care about this at all. She faintly said, "You don't have to apologize to me. I just hope that my team members can respect the competition, especially you as the captain." "I understand." Qin Haoshuan readily accepted her advice and smiled. He then sat down on an empty seat and began to meditate. Not far away, when the Black Moon Combat Academy students saw Qin Haoshuan appear and treat Yi Qingning so gently, their expressions became rather strange. "I really didn't expect Qin Haoshuan to be so infatuated." Han Ting sighed and didn't say anything else. After all, the competition was about to begin, and it was better not to say anything that would damage the morale of the team. Lan Shuxi knew why Han Ting was sighing. She clenched the talisman pen in her hand and said to everyone, "Let's rest quietly. Wait a moment, I'll be the first to go up the stage." Lan Shuxin was neither the strongest nor the weakest among the group. She was the most stable one. Although the possibility of her winning was not high, it was not a problem for her to test the opponent's strength and pave the way for the next teammate to go up the stage. "Then I'll be the second to go up." Long Xiao didn't hesitate to grab the second opportunity to go up the stage. She was confident that she could defeat any one of Jiang Wudi's team. If Lan Shuxin was the first to exhaust her, then she would be even more confident. "I'll be the third." Han Ting pursed his lips. If Long Xiao was defeated, then he could take advantage of the situation and exhaust his second or third opponent to pave the way for the rest of the competition. "I'll be the fourth." LVZ also made her choice at this moment, and the remaining position of the finale was given to Bai Yu. No one had any objections to this result. If there was anyone among them who could create miracles like Qin Chuan, then it would definitely be Bai Yu. Chapter 271. Next, let us invite the representatives of Star Dragon's First Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy to the stage. As the charming host's voice fell, the audience in the stadium immediately cheered. The clash between the previous 6 Great Academies qualifier champions and this year's freshman competition had long made the audience somewhat impatient. As the audience cheered, Qin Haoshuan led the team of Star Dragon's First Academy and slowly walked towards the stage. On the other side, Han Ting led the team of the Black Moon Combat Academy. The two teams were less than 10 meters apart, but the expressions on their faces were completely different. One side was relaxed, while the other had a serious expression. On the commentary platform, commentator Zay, she saw the expressions on the two teams' faces and couldn't help but sigh. Although the Black Moon Combat Academy has just defeated Star Dragon's First Academy and obtained first place in the freshman competition, they don't have the confidence to win against Star Dragon's First Academy in the official competition. From their expressions, we can see that they don't have much of a chance of winning. His partner, Lord, nodded in agreement. "You're right. In terms of overall strength, the First Academy of Star Dragon is clearly stronger. If the Black Moon Combat Academy is unable to defeat the First Academy of Star Dragon, Perhaps Miracle Youth will be a substitute. Qingchuan's strength is indeed very strong and has received everyone's approval. However, Qingchuan's abilities are mostly in the field of battle arrays. When facing a Foundation Establishment middle stage opponent, Qingchuan still has the opportunity to inscribe battle arrays. However, if he faces a Foundation Establishment late stage, or even a Foundation Establishment complete stage opponent, Qingchuan may not be able to easily deal with them. Therefore, even if Qingchuan comes out, I don't think the Black Moon Combat Academy will win. However, what we're saying now is just a guess. As for the specifics, we'll have to see the next match. The commentator's words struck a chord with the audience. Based on strength alone, the Black Moon Combat Academy was inferior to Star Dragon's first academy in all aspects. A difference of one small realm could be made up for in other aspects, but a difference of two small realms was not so easy to make up for. Are you not going to fight? In the audience, Wang Bo looked at Qingchuan, who was sitting beside him. He couldn't possibly wait until the Black Moon Combat Academy entered the revival round before making his move. Not making a move now is the right choice. Zhou Lin indifferently replied, if Qingchuan makes a move now, he might not be able to help the Black Moon Combat Academy win this match. Qingchuan, who was sitting in the middle, nodded and said, that's right. Although I have confidence in my own strength, if I really have to face a Foundation Establishment late stage, or even a Foundation Establishment expert, without any preparation, I may not be able to win. The slightest mistake may cause me to lose. Qingchuan wasn't an arrogant and boorish person. He was happy that he had won the first place in the freshman competition. However, he didn't think that he was invincible or arrogant because of this. He wouldn't relax until he defeated Qin Haoshuan. Hearing Qingchuan's words, Wang Bo could only helplessly say, but looking at the expressions of your classmates, none of them have any fighting spirit. I hope they won't lose too badly. The only ones who have no fighting spirit are Han Ting and Lan Shuxin. Zhou Lin hit the nail on the head and said indifferently, although the two of them are in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm and are seniors, their actual combat strength isn't strong. Furthermore, they don't have the confidence to win. Instead, they've placed their hopes on the other three. It can be said that they don't have any responsibility. Qingchuan helplessly sighed when he heard this. He could tell what Zhou Lin had said, but there was nothing he could do. Han Ting and Lan Shuxin were indeed not strong. Even if they wanted to carry the burden, they didn't have the ability to do so. The First Academy of Star Dragon will win. The First Academy of Star Dragon will win. Qin Haoshuan is invincible. Go Black Moon Combat Academy. The Divine Star Dragon Maiden shines brightly. Qin Haoshuan will win. The audience cheered crazily and waved the banners and support cards in their hands. Some people were so excited that they fainted. The scene was extremely lively. The first match of the official tournament was about to begin. Amidst the audience's enthusiastic cheers, the First Academy of Star Dragon's Jiang Wudi took the stage as the first contestant. On the other side, the Black Moon Combat Academy sent out Lan Shuxin according to the original plan. Jiang Wudi stood on the stage. When he saw Lan Shuxin, he couldn't help but sneer and say, I don't like to hit women. Lan Shuxin was expressionless and said lightly, if you don't like to hit women, why don't you just admit defeat? If that's the case, then I'll choose to destroy the flower. Jiang Wudi chuckled and looked at Lan Shuxin with a malevolent gaze. It was obvious that he didn't have good intentions. The host stood between Jiang Wudi and Lan Shuxin. He faced the audience and said in a clear voice, now, I announce that the first match of the official tournament of the 6 Great Academies is between the First Academy of Star Dragon and the Black Moon Combat Academy. Jiang Wudi and Lan Shuxin. Match begin. As soon as the host finished speaking, the cheers in the arena rose to another level. At the same time, the referee officially blew the whistle. Toot, toot, toot. The moment the whistle sounded, Jiang Wudi's body suddenly lit up with resplendent runes. His aura surged, and he was like a ferocious tiger coming down from the mountains as he brazenly pounced toward Lan Shuxin. Facing Jiang Wudi's strong attack, Lan Shuxin didn't seem to have any intention of distancing herself or inscribing runic arrays. Her body also lit up with blue runes. Instead of retreating, she advanced and took the initiative to meet Jiang Wudi. Seeing Lan Shuxin take the initiative to meet him, Jiang Wudi was slightly stunned. Soon after, he smiled maliciously. He would let Lan Shuxin know how disastrous the price of underestimating him was. Jade Wave Splendor. Lan Shuxin let out a delicate cry, and a clear spring suddenly appeared between her palms. This clear spring flowed noisily and instantly turned the arena into a pool of water. At this moment, Jiang Wudi was less than 10 meters away from Lan Shuxin. When he saw the pool of water in front of Lan Shuxin, he didn't dodge and directly charged toward it. At this moment, Lan Shuxin put her palms together and shouted again. Water prison. As soon as Lan Shuxin shouted, the water in the pool suddenly became active and rushed toward Jiang Wudi. It turned into an airtight cage and trapped Jiang Wudi inside. Seeing that Jiang Wudi was trapped in the water prison, Lan Shuxin immediately retreated and opened up the distance between them. At the same time, she poured the majestic spiritual energy in her body into the pool of water and coldly said, Water explosion. When the words, water explosion, came out of her mouth, the clear pool of water suddenly fluctuated violently. In an instant, it tumbled like a magma eruption and erupted with an extremely shocking energy fluctuation. It suddenly exploded, and the sound was like thunder as it turned into a curtain of rain that covered the sky. Chapter 272. On the commentary platform, when Zhe Shi and Lord saw Lan Shuxin's performance in the arena, they couldn't help but praise her. Brilliant! It's really brilliant! Instead of retreating, Lan Shuxin advanced and set up a series of traps. She made use of Jiang Wudi's underestimation of her and put him in a difficult situation. This water explosion might be too much for Jiang Wudi to handle. Jiang Wudi may have underestimated his opponent, but he has the capital to do so. Water spiritual power is gentle and has limited destructive power. It might not be able to cause too much damage to Jiang Wudi. At that moment, the arena was shrouded in rain. The commentators couldn't see the situation in the arena clearly and could only make wild guesses. At this moment, the spectators were also very anxious. They wanted to see how the situation in the arena was like. Qin Chuan looked at the arena with a serious expression and asked Zhou Lin, who was beside him, how much damage do you think Lan Shuxin's series of attacks can cause to Jiang Wudi? Zhou Lin stared at the arena and said calmly, It's useless. Whoosh! When the last wave of rain fell, everything in the arena appeared before everyone's eyes again. Jiang Wudi, who was in the center of the water explosion, was enveloped by the light of a black rune. Looking at his body, he was unscathed. On the other side, Lan Shuxin's rune array was more than half completed and was about to be completed. On the other side, Jiang Wudi was not doing nothing. You won't have a chance. Jiang Wudi laughed sinisterly. If I lose to you like this, I'll be letting down the slot that I got from the Qin family with great difficulty. Whoosh! A gray blade shot out from Jiang Wudi's hand and went straight for Lan Shuxin. It was so fast that Lan Shuxin couldn't react in time and was pierced in the chest. Puchi! With her chest pierced, Lan Shuxin spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face suddenly turned pale. However, she didn't stop the rune brush in her hand and finished the last stroke of the rune array. Heavenly Water Battle Array. Activate. Lan Shuxin let out a furious roar. Suddenly, a huge talisman array appeared in the sky and gathered the spiritual qi from all directions. The spiritual qi turned into a vast ocean and poured down. The arena turned into a world of ocean at that moment. Everything was submerged in the ocean. At that moment, the ocean suddenly fluctuated violently. It suddenly compressed and then exploded. Lan Shuxin actually used the same trick again and unleashed the water explosion again. Furthermore, the momentum this time was even greater than before. Seeing this, Zhe Shi, who was on the commentary platform, could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. He exclaimed, Lan Shuxin is using a method of mutual destruction to fight. Even a mountain control rune might not be able to withstand such a terrifying explosion. Shocking, shocking, unbelievable. Lan Shuxin is so decisive. The rune array, the rune array, the rune array, rune array, the rune array, the rune array, rune, the rune array, the rune array, the rune. The rune sea that was definitely enough to turn half of the Red Dragon Stadium into ruins in an instant. I've underestimated her. Jolin was also shocked by the scene in front of her. She didn't expect Lan Shuxin to use such a terrifying method of mutual destruction after her body was penetrated by the gray blade. Qingchuan's face was gloomy. He didn't say anything. Compared to the outcome of the match, he was more worried about Lan Shuxin's safety. Below the arena, Han Ting and the others looked anxiously at the monstrous waves in the arena. They said that they were only going to exhaust the opponent. Why did they have to risk their lives? On the other side, the few people from the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy had ugly expressions on their faces. They felt that Jiang Wudi was too conceited and had underestimated his opponent. If Jiang Wudi had gone all out from the start, instead of toying with Lan Shuxin like a cat playing with a mouse, this wouldn't have happened. This Jiang Wudi shouldn't have been allowed to be the official representative. Yuman said to Drizzt in dissatisfaction. I think Junior Qian is pretty good. I really don't understand why the Qian family wants Junior Qian to withdraw from the competition. Yuman, be careful with your words. Drizzt frowned slightly and reminded Yuman not to speak carelessly. After Drizzt's reminder, Yuman also knew that she had said something wrong. She glanced at Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning discreetly. When she saw that there weren't any changes in their expressions, she quietly heaved a sigh of relief. When the name list was decided, Jiang Wudi wasn't the official representative. His name was only obtained after Qian Duobao withdrew from the competition. As for why Qian Duobao withdrew from the competition, it had to be because of the press conference. At the press conference, Qian Duobao's words were shocking. Not only did he confess his feelings to Qin Haoshuan, but he also secretly stepped on Yi Qingning. It could be said that he had caused a huge commotion. In order to quell the commotion, the Qian family took the initiative to withdraw Qian Duobao from the competition and push Jiang Wudi up. However, who would have thought that Jiang Wudi was a brute who was bold but not astute? He had actually been schemed against by Lan Shuxin, who was in the middle foundation establishment stage. When the explosion stopped, the referee, who was in the late golden core stage, immediately rushed into the arena. In an instant, he brought out two badly mutilated figures from the arena and quickly handed them over to the medical staff who had been standing by the side. He then announced to the crowd, the first match between the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy is a draw because both contestants are seriously injured and unconscious. A draw. When they heard the referee's announcement, even though they were already mentally prepared, they were still extremely shocked. Who would have thought that Jiang Wudi, who was in the late foundation establishment stage, would actually end up in a draw against Lan Shuxin, who was only in the middle foundation establishment stage? Before the start of the competition, who would have thought that a girl like Lan Shuxin would have such courage? She actually used the method of mutual destruction to eliminate Jiang Wudi, turning a match that had a high probability of losing into a draw. I have to say, the people from the Black Moon Combat Academy always show unexpected sides. To be honest, I've become a fan of theirs. Me too. However, I still hope that the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy can quickly adjust their condition and seriously prepare for the next match. When they heard the commentator's words, the audience in the spectators' seats immediately erupted with discontent towards the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy. In their opinion, Jiang Wudi was definitely going to win against Lan Shuxin. It was because Jiang Wudi had underestimated his opponent that this match, which was supposed to be a sure win, ended in a draw. Faced with the curses and scoldings from the spectators' seats, everyone from the First Academy of Star Dragon Academy had ugly expressions on their faces. Qin Haoshuan coldly looked forward and said in a deep voice, I'll take the next match. Chapter 273. Yuman and Drizzt were both surprised when they heard that Qin Haoshuan was going to step onto the stage. "Captain, let me do it." Drizzt looked at Qin Haoshuan and said, "With my strength at the perfect foundation stage, as long as I don't make the same mistake as Jiang Wudi, they won't be able to defeat me. No, I want to make sure that I can win the next match. I won't allow any mistakes." From Qin Haoshuan's point of view, he had to step onto the stage to ensure that he could win the next match. Moreover, he wanted to clear the name of the First Academy of Star Dragon and shut up all those rude people. When Drizzt saw Qin Haoshuan's determined attitude, he couldn't say anything else. He could only look at Yi Qingning helplessly. At this time, only Yi Qingning could persuade Qin Haoshuan. However, Yi Qingning didn't have this intention, because from her point of view, it was the same no matter who stepped onto the stage. When Qin Haoshuan slowly stepped onto the stage, the noisy crowd suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at Qin Haoshuan in surprise. As the finale, was he going to step onto the stage now? The host was also at a loss. She looked at Qin Haoshuan and asked carefully, "Qin Haoshuan, are you going to step onto the stage as the second contestant of the First Academy of Star Dragon?" "Yes." Qin Haoshuan answered the host's question indifferently, but it caused a huge uproar in the crowd. No one had expected that Qin Haoshuan would step onto the stage early after his defeat in the first match. This made many of the audience who had high expectations for Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but cheer. "Qin Haoshuan, you will win for sure. Qin Haoshuan, you will win for sure. Qin Haoshuan, you will win for sure." At first, only a small number of people were shouting. Gradually, more and more people were shouting. Then the entire stadium was filled with this unified shout. Almost half of the audience was shouting for Qin Haoshuan. It was shocking. This scene is simply too shocking. It has been a long time since I've seen such a popular contestant like Qin Haoshuan. Commentator Zhe Shi sighed and said, "With the talent and strength that Qin Haoshuan has displayed, in addition to his background and handsome appearance, it can be said that he is almost perfect. Only such a contestant can have such an honor." That's right. In all fairness, if there's a young person whose prestige can compare to Qin Haoshuan, then it's probably only our divine Star Dragon Maiden. When Qin Xuan heard the two commentators praising Qin Haoshuan from the spectator stands, he could not help but twitch his mouth. Isn't it a little too much to praise this fellow like that? When Zhou Lin heard this, she pursed her lips and said, "I am not bragging. Qin Haoshuan is indeed very strong. I tested him before and nearly lost." Qin Xuan looked at Zhou Lin in surprise and asked, "How did you test him? Why haven't I heard anything about this?" "Night attack." Zhou Lin replied indifferently. The corner of Qin Xuan's mouth fiercely twitched. She actually dared to do something like a night attack. This was too unscrupulous. Just when Qin Xuan was about to say something, the second representative of the Black Moon Combat Academy stepped onto the stage. This time, the contestant was also the captain of the Black Moon Combat Academy, Han Ting. According to the original plan, Long Xiao should have been the contestant for this match. However, because Qin Haoshuan had stepped onto the stage earlier, the Black Moon Combat Academy had made a last-minute change. Han Ting would first test Qin Haoshuan before the other contestants stepped onto the stage. Han Ting did not have any objections to this arrangement because he was very clear that he was the weakest among the remaining four contestants. Letting him test Qin Haoshuan's strength was the correct decision. When Han Ting stepped onto the stage, the host looked at Qin Haoshuan and then at Han Ting. He said in a clear voice, "The next match should be the highlight of today's competition. Since Qin Haoshuan and Han Ting are the captains of their respective teams, I look forward to their performances. Now, I announce the second match between the First Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy. Qin Haoshuan versus Han Ting. Begin." After the host left the stage, only Qin Haoshuan and Han Ting were left on the stage. Qin Haoshuan looked at Han Ting indifferently and asked, "As the captain, how is your strength compared to Qin Xuan's?" Han Ting pursed his lips and said, "Not as good." Qin Haoshuan nodded and said, "Since you're so honest, I'll let you lose quickly." Han Ting took a deep look at Qin Haoshuan, and his expression gradually became solemn. If he wanted to test Qin Haoshuan's strength, then he absolutely couldn't be killed in an instant. He had to be prepared to prolong the battle as much as possible. Do-do-do. When the referee's whistle sounded, Han Ting immediately wanted to pull away from Qin Haoshuan. However, at this moment, a terrifying wind pressure acted on Han Ting's body. It actually pushed Han Ting out of the arena with lightning speed. Bang! Han Ting's body slammed into the ground outside the arena and slid backward without slowing down, leaving a deep mark on the ground that was at least 60 to 70 meters long. When his body stopped, Han Ting's facial features were twisted together due to extreme pain. He let out a slight hiss, and his breathing was weak. Looking at Han Ting's badly mutilated body, the originally noisy scene became so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. What had happened just now? The whistle had clearly just sounded, so how did Han Ting appear outside the stage with such serious injuries? Could this be the Qin family's secret technique, the charging wind cannon? The commentator, Zhe Shi, widened his eyes in shock. He looked at the replay on the crystal screen and said in surprise, "This must be the charging wind cannon. Only the charging wind cannon can explode with such a powerful wind pressure in an instant and defeat the opponent in the blink of an eye. But the charging wind cannon can only be released with a charging wind rune. However, no rune lit up on Qin Haoshuan's body. Moreover, the charging wind rune is an earth rune. How did Qin Haoshuan release the charging wind cannon in an instant? Even a golden core stage expert might not be able to do this. Charging wind cannon. Earth rune." Hearing the commentator's words, the quiet audience gasped. Everyone knew about the Qin clan's shockwave cannon. However, most of them had only heard of the shockwave cannon's prowess. This was the first time they had seen the might of the shockwave cannon. Looking at Han Ting, who was rescued by the medical staff, everyone couldn't help but suspect that if the rules of the competition allowed killing, perhaps Han Ting would be a dead man now. Who would have thought that the collision between the captains would actually end the moment the whistle sounded? Chapter 274. What kind of attack is this? Long Shao looked at the long mark on the ground in shock. In that instant, the power that Qin Haoshuan had unleashed was not inferior to Lan Shuxin's water explosion. It was even more terrifying. LVZ's expression was extremely grave as she looked at Qin Haoshuan, who was standing on the stage in a relaxed manner. She said in a deep voice, "It would be very difficult for any of us to dodge such an attack." Han Ting had already been defeated, and only the three of them were left. However, even by you might not be able to block such a terrifying attack that could be unleashed in an instant. It would be difficult for them to even touch the corner of Qin Haoshuan's clothes, let alone defeat him. He can't do it consecutively. Bai Yu looked deeply at Qin Haoshuan and said to Lu Zi, "He can only unleash such an attack once in a short period of time." Lu Zi was surprised when she heard Bai Yu's words. She asked, "Are you sure?" Bai Yu nodded and said to Lu Zi, "We have to end this quickly. We can't give him the chance to recover." "I'll do it." Long Shao lifted her foot and walked toward the arena. She wanted to see what other abilities Qin Haoshuan had without the charging wind cannon. At this moment, the host had already returned to the stage. She looked at Qin Haoshuan with excitement and then looked at the audience. She said loudly, "It was an extremely exciting and shocking match. I announce that Qin Haoshuan is the winner of the second match between the First Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy." Roar. The moment the host's voice fell, the audience burst into earth-shattering cheers. Qin Haoshuan, whom they trusted, did not disappoint them. He defeated his opponent in an absolutely crushing manner. At this moment, the loud cheers once again resounded throughout the entire stadium. Just as the host wanted to say something, Long Shao had already walked onto the stage. She glanced at the excited host who wanted to praise Qin Haoshuan and said coldly, "All right, shut up. Let's announce the start of the next match." The host was stunned when she heard Long Zhao's words. This was the first time she had seen a contestant who was so impatient to start the next match. Qin Haoshuan narrowed his eyes when he saw Long Zhao's impatience. He said indifferently, "Since Miss Long Xiao is so impatient, let's move on to the next match." Long Xiao snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "Pretentious." When the host heard Qin Haoshuan's words, she did not say anything else. She announced the audience was still shouting excitedly. Next, the first academy will be pitted against the Black Moon Combat Academy. The third match, Qin Haoshuan will be pitted against Long Xiao. When the host of the audience of the next match of the first, the commentator immediately began to give a detailed analysis of the current of the match of the first academy. Qin Haoshuan easily defeated Han Ting with an unrivaled momentum. He is currently in the limelight. The Black Moon Combat Academy's decision to immediately move on to the next match is the most appropriate choice. If Qin Haoshuan continues to gather momentum, the situation will become more and more disadvantageous for the Black Moon Combat Academy. Perhaps some people do not know much about Long Xiao. However, I believe that everyone knows about the Long family, which is the #1 symbol array master in the Federation. Long Xiao is the daughter of the current head of the Long family, Senior Long Wu. She is also the daughter of the Long family's first wife. She is extremely talented in the symbol array Dao and is definitely not weak. If she fights against Qin Haoshuan might not be as relaxed as before. That's right. I'm also looking forward to seeing how the Long family's first wife's daughter will perform in this match. The audience's understanding of Long Xiao was indeed limited. The majority of the audience only knew of her existence through the Star Dragon list. As for Long Zhao's strength, not many people knew about it. However, the audience was very familiar with the #1 symbol array master in the Federation. Since Long Xiao was from the Long family, and she was also the first wife's daughter, her strength should not be too weak. At the very least, she should be able to compete with Qin Haoshuan. However, the majority of the audience was not optimistic about Long Xiao. They still felt that Qin Haoshuan would be the final victor. Beep, beep, beep. The familiar whistle sounded and the match officially began. Just when the audience was wondering if Qin Haoshuan would be able to instantly defeat Long Xiao with a single move, Qin Haoshuan staggered and took 2 steps back. When the audience saw this scene, they could not help but feel surprised. What was going on? Just when the audience was surprised, commentator Zhe, she immediately explained Qin Haoshuan's performance to the audience. If I'm not wrong, Long Xiao should be wary that Qin Haoshuan would use the charge wind cannon to instantly kill her. Therefore, she made the first move and directly attacked Qin Haoshuan's brain with her mental energy. This is an extremely dangerous move. Long Xiao is a symbol array master. Naturally, her mental energy is stronger than ordinary people. Since she took the risk to attack Qin Haoshuan's brain with her mental energy, it is obvious that she is confident that she can defeat Qin Haoshuan in terms of mental energy. That's right. At this moment, the arena is completely silent to our naked eyes. It is as if nothing has happened. However, in fact, the battle between Qin Haoshuan and Long Xiao is on the mental energy level. It is more dangerous than a normal battle. The slightest carelessness may lead to eternal damnation. After hearing the commentator's explanation, the audience who did not know what was going on could not help but feel worried. This kind of battle that involved the mental energy level was extremely dangerous. Even a referee would find it difficult to immediately react and take targeted rescue measures. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. She is too reckless. Qin Chuan looked at Long Xiao, who was frowning in the arena. With a serious expression, he said to Zhou Lin, "This time, she may suffer a great loss." After hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhou Lin was a little puzzled. As a symbol array master, Long Xiao's mental energy is definitely stronger than Qin Haoshuan's. Why do you think that Long Xiao will suffer a loss? Dragon soul? Qin Chuan said in a deep voice. Qin Haoshuan has a dragon soul. Zhou Lin's expression could not help but change slightly when she heard this. If Qin Haoshuan had a dragon soul to protect his body, With Long Zhao's mental energy, it was impossible for her to seriously injure Qin Haoshuan. If she was not careful, she might even suffer a backlash. At this moment, a new change finally occurred in the arena. Long Zhao's face suddenly turned pale. Black blood flowed from her nose and the corner of her mouth. Her body was also on the verge of collapse. In the next moment, an earth-shattering dragon roar sounded from Qin Haoshuan's body. Soon after, Long Zhao let out a miserable cry and fainted on the arena. After Long Zhao fainted, Qin Haoshuan slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Long Zhao, who had fainted on the ground, and sneered. If it was in the past, perhaps he would be afraid of Long Zhao's mental energy attack. However, now that he had a dragon soul, his mental energy was infinitely strengthened. It was merely a fool's dream for Long Zhao to think that she could win with her mental energy. Chapter 275. Commentators say she could not help but cry out when he saw the scene on the stage. Dragon Soul Protection. It's actually the Dragon Soul Protection. Rumor has it that on the day of Qin Haoshuan's foundation establishment banquet, the Qin family's ancestor, Qin Chongxiao, personally gave Qin Haoshuan a dragon soul as a congratulatory gift. I never thought that this dragon soul would appear at this moment and help Qin Haoshuan defeat Long Zhao. What a pity. If not for the dragon soul protection, perhaps Long Zhao would have had a chance to win. What a pity, what a pity. A dragon soul is rarely seen in 1,000 years. For Qin Haoshuan to be able to obtain it, it can be said that he has received the favor of the heavens. Long Zhao neglected this point and tried to defeat Qin Haoshuan with her spiritual energy. She really chose the wrong method. If Long Zhao had used a talisman array to fight against Qin Haoshuan, perhaps she could have won. However, she had neglected the dragon soul and chose to use her spiritual energy to attack Qin Haoshuan's brain. It was the same as trying to get a fish out of a tree. It was normal for her to suffer such a crushing defeat. The moment Long Zhao fell, the audience that supported Qin Haoshuan cheered once again. At this moment, Qin Haoshuan was like a god of war in their eyes, standing tall and unyielding. Qin Haoshuan will definitely win this battle. Hearing this resounding slogan, even Yi Qingning, who had always disliked Qin Haoshuan, had to admit that Qin Haoshuan did have some ability. He was really strong. Now, the opponent's captain and the Long family's first daughter have both been defeated. The remaining two are not well known and should not be powerful characters. We will definitely win this battle. Seeing Qin Haoshuan's 2 consecutive crushing performances, Yuman could not help but smile. Compared to the reckless Jiang Wudi, Qin Haoshuan's performance could be said to be impeccable. However, Driz did not agree with Yuman's words. He looked at Bayu's figure with a subtle expression and said to Yuman, "Captain has already defeated 2 opponents, but that white-haired girl for the Black Moon Combat Academy is still expressionless. It's as if nothing has happened. Do you think she is stunned by the captain's performance? Or is she confident that she can defeat him?" Hearing Driz's words, Yuman could not help but look at Bayu. After seriously sizing her up, Yuman could not help but ask with some doubts, "Who is she?" Bayu, a freshman at the Black Moon Combat Academy. Yi Qingning, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up. She looked at Bayu's figure and lightly said, "As far as I know, Bayu is the #1 new student of the Black Moon Combat Academy." The #1 freshman? Yuman and Drizzt were rather surprised to hear this. Shouldn't Qin Xuan be the #1 amongst the new students? Seeing the changes in Yuman and Drizzt's expressions, Yi Qingning knew what the 2 of them were thinking. She smiled and said, "At first, I also thought that Qin Xuan was the #1 freshman of the Black Moon Combat Academy. However, after some investigation, I discovered that this Bayu might be even stronger than Qin Xuan." Yuman and Drizzt looked at each other and saw a trace of graveness in each other's eyes. Their memories of Qin Xuan's performance in the newcomer competition were still fresh in their minds. If Bayu is stronger than Qin Xuan, wouldn't that mean that Qin Haoshuan would be in danger? However, let's not say anything yet. We'll only know who's stronger after watching the 2 of them fight. Yi Qingning looked at Qin Haoshuan with a playful expression and said, I actually hope that Qin Haoshuan will suffer a loss and lose his spirit. Below the stage, Lu Zi looked at Baiyu with a solemn expression and said, Let me fight the next battle. Baiyu nodded and said, Be careful. Lu Zi nodded lightly and walked towards the stage. She stood in front of Qin Haoshuan with an expressionless face, but her eyes were filled with fighting spirit as she looked at Qin Haoshuan. Facing Lu Zi's eyes that were filled with fighting spirit, Qin Haoshuan gently smiled and said, You're an interesting person. You actually have such a high fighting spirit. Do you really think that you can defeat me? Everything depends on effort. Lu Zi pursed her lips. Of course, she knew that it would be difficult for her to defeat Qin Haoshuan. However, she still had to try her best. What if she succeeded? Then you'll have to work harder. I've heard that you have a good relationship with Qin Xuan. I won't be lenient with you. Qin Haoshuan suddenly turned to look in the direction of the audience. His gaze accurately locked onto Qin Xuan, who was sitting in the front row. He gave Qin Xuan a faint smile, and a trace of coldness appeared in his eyes. In the audience, Qin Xuan felt that something was wrong when he sensed Qin Haoshuan's hostility towards him. He was worried that Qin Haoshuan would do something excessive to Lu Zi. He wanted to make Lu Zi admit defeat, but at this moment, the referee's whistle rang out. The fourth match between Star Dragon's First Academy and the Black Moon Combat Academy was about to begin. At the beginning of the match, Lu Zi's figure suddenly split into 10 and scattered in all directions. Based on her appearance and voice, it was impossible to tell which was the real body. This student LVZ is actually a rare illusion array master. It's really surprising. Right now, she should be using the shadow body glyph array. This is a glyph array that illusion array masters commonly use to protect themselves and confuse the enemy. It's also one of the few instant cast glyph arrays. An illusion array master's combat strength is on the weaker side. Although Lu Zi will affect Qin Haoshuan to a certain extent, the effect should be limited. The audience was very surprised when they heard the commentator's words. They had seen many array masters before, but this was the first time they had seen an illusion array master. They wondered what kind of strength this rare illusion array master would be able to display against Qin Haoshuan. At this moment, Qin Haoshuan remained motionless on the stage. He allowed Lu Zi's figures to scatter in all directions. He looked at Lu Zi's movements with interest, as if he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. On the other side, Lu Zi's mood wasn't as relaxed as Qin Haoshuan's. This was because Qin Haoshuan's gaze had been locked on her body from beginning to end. It was as if he hadn't been affected by her doppelgangers at all. This made her feel surprised, but at the same time, she didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. She was worried that Qin Haoshuan would take advantage of her weakness and defeat her in one move. Lu Zi tried to constantly change the location of her body, but Qin Haoshuan was able to accurately lock onto her every time. This made Lu Zi realize that the shadow body glyph array was useless against Qin Haoshuan. Flying Cloud Glyph Array, activate. Lu Zi shouted in a low voice and suddenly activated the Flying Cloud Glyph Array. She wanted to use the Flying Cloud Glyph Array to obscure Qin Haoshuan's vision. However, at this moment, Qin Haoshuan, who had been as steady as Mount Tai, moved. Without any sound, Qin Haoshuan's figure appeared behind Lu Zi like a ghost. His palm lightly landed on Lu Zi's shoulder, but it made Lu Zi feel as if she was being crushed by Mount Tai. Her shoulder instantly caved in and blood splashed out. Chapter 276. The moment her shoulder was heavily injured, Lu Zi endured the pain and tried to pull away from Qin Haoshuan. However, Qin Haoshuan did not give Lu Zi the chance to do so. His left hand firmly grabbed onto Lu Zi's left shoulder, and a majestic spiritual force gushed out from his palm, instantly crushing Lu Zi's left shoulder. Looking at Lu Zi's mangled shoulders, Qin Haoshuan smiled and said, "Now, can you still continue to inscribe the symbol arrays?" Lu Zi, who was being controlled by Qin Haoshuan, was as pale as a sheet of paper. Large beads of sweat rolled down her forehead, and she gritted her teeth to prevent herself from crying out in pain. When Qin Haoshuan saw that Lu Zi was holding on and was unwilling to scream, he couldn't help but sneer again. "I want to see how hard your bones are." Qin Haoshuan exerted force in his hand and controlled Lu Zi's body. Then he suddenly raised his right leg and ruthlessly kicked the back of Lu Zi's leg. Along with the sound of bones shattering, Lu Zi's right leg was immediately broken. The white bone pierced through the red flesh and blood, making for an extremely hideous scene. This time, LVZ was finally unable to hold back and cried out in an incomparably miserable manner. When he saw that Lu Zi had finally let out a miserable scream, Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. He liked this feeling. In the spectator stands, everyone was shocked when they saw Qin Haoshuan's cruel actions towards Lu Zi. Qin Haoshuan clearly could have won easily, so why did he have to torture Lu Zi like this? Even those who had always supported Qin Haoshuan and worshipped him were frightened by Qin Haoshuan's atrocious behavior. Admit defeat. Just when the entire stadium was silent, an extremely cold voice rang out in everyone's ears. At some point, Qin Chuan's figure had arrived below the stage and stood beside Baiyu. He gloomily looked at the referee who was standing not far away and said, "Our Black Moon Combat Academy admits defeat." When the referee heard Qin Chuan's words, he was about to stop the match. However, Qin Haoshuan suddenly sneered and said, "According to the rules of the competition, only the contestant or the team leader of the representative team admits defeat will count. You are a member of the newcomer competition and an ordinary team member. Admitting defeat is invalid." As he spoke, Qin Haoshuan had already raised his leg and aimed at Lu Zi's other leg. When he saw this scene, Qin Chuan's pupils couldn't help but shrink. He exclaimed, "Bastard, stop!" In the arena, she knew that if she continued to persist, she would be humiliated even worse. She was simply no match for Qin Haoshuan. But when she was to admit defeat, Qin Haoshuan ruthlessly broke her left leg. Instantly, she was about to admit defeat. Instantly, the words "admit defeat" "admit defeat" turned to "admit defeat" to "admit defeat, bastard." Qin Chuan could no longer hold back the anger in his heart. He suddenly rushed into the arena. Toot, toot, toot. At the same time, the referee's whistle rang out. His figure appeared in the arena and blocked the furious Qin Chuan. Black Moon Combat Academy's contestant Lu Zi has fainted, automatically disqualified. The winner of this match is Star Dragon's First Academy's Qin Haoshuan. As he spoke, the referee looked at Qin Haoshuan with an extremely strict gaze. If Qin Haoshuan dared to make a move on Lu Zi again, then he would not be polite. Facing the referee's warning gaze, Qin Haoshuan tactfully did not continue to make a move on Lu Zi. He slowly let go of Lu Zi's body and let it lie on the ground. He then slowly took 2 steps back, indicating that he agreed with the referee's decision and that he would not make another move. On the other side, the medical personnel who had been waiting for a long time quickly carried Lu Zi away and gave her emergency treatment. "Qin Chuan, this is an official competition, not a freshman competition. Please abide by the rules and remain calm." The referee turned his head and looked at Qin Chuan with a similarly strict gaze. "Sorry, I have a few words to say. I'll leave after I finish." Qin Chuan's gaze was firmly fixed on the smiling Qin Haoshuan. He gently pushed the referee away and slowly walked in front of Qin Haoshuan, stopping in his tracks. Qin Haoshuan looked at Qin Chuan, who was standing in front of him. He faintly smiled and said, "Originally, this kind of torture should have been inflicted on you. Unfortunately, you didn't participate in the competition, so I could only make a move on Lu Zi. I heard that the two of you have a pretty good relationship. I think that you should be heartbroken, right? You're treating Lu Zi like this today because I rejected your invitation?" At this moment, Qin Chuan had already calmed down. You want to know the reason behind Qin Haoshuan's actions? When you rejected my invitation that day, you and your companions were doomed. The corner of Qin Haoshuan's mouth curled up as he coldly smiled. If you don't accept this, you can lead the Black Moon Combat Academy out of the revival round. I'll be waiting for you in the finals. Due to the loudspeakers on the stage, the entire audience, including those who were sitting in front of their crystal screens, could clearly hear the conversation between Qin Chuan and Qin Haoshuan. Originally, they had been confused and angry at Qin Haoshuan's violent behavior towards Lu Zi. However, after hearing Qin Haoshuan's explanation, everyone understood that Qin Haoshuan had done this because of Qin Chuan. Everyone involuntarily thought of the incident that had occurred during the freshman competition. Not only had Qin Chuan rejected Qin Haoshuan's invitation, but he had also spoken rudely and insulted Qin Haoshuan. Qin Chuan probably did not expect that this incident would suddenly erupt and implicate the people around him. At this moment, the audience could somewhat understand Qin Haoshuan's actions. After all, Qin Chuan had insulted Qin Haoshuan and the Qin family. If Qin Haoshuan did not respond, then how could the Qin family establish themselves in the Federation in the future? Rather than saying that Qin Haoshuan was violent towards Lu Zi, it was more accurate to say that Qin Haoshuan was purposely forcing Qin Chuan to appear. He wanted Qin Chuan to participate in the revival round so that he could have a fair fight with Qin Chuan. However, how could Qin Haoshuan be sure that Qin Chuan could lead the Black Moon Combat Academy out of the revival round? After thinking about it, if Qin Chuan could not lead the Black Moon Combat Academy out of the revival round and stand in front of Qin Haoshuan again, then he would not have the qualifications to talk about revenge. Qin Haoshuan naturally would not make things difficult for someone who did not even have the qualifications to stand in front of him. Qin Chuan did not immediately respond to Qin Haoshuan. Instead, he slowly turned to look at the referee and asked, "How can I kill someone during the competition?" After hearing Qin Chuan's question, the originally noisy arena suddenly quieted down. What was this guy trying to do? Both parties are willing to sign a life and death agreement. Then they can fight to the death in the arena. There is no need to bear any responsibility. The referee looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, "Young man, you should think twice before you act." Qin Chuan acted as if he did not hear the referee's words. He turned to face Qin Haoshuan again and said resolutely, "Your life is mine. If I want to kill you, no one can stop me. Not even your Qin family's ancestor." Chapter 277. Your life is mine now. When they heard Qin Chuan say this to Qin Haoshuan, everyone was shocked by Qin Chuan's decisiveness. When they heard Qin Chuan say, "Even the Qin family's ancestor can't do it," everyone looked at Qin Chuan as if they were looking at a madman. If he wasn't crazy, how could Qin Chuan say such shocking words? What kind of person was the Qin family's ancestor? He was a nascent soul cultivator who stood at the top of the Federation. What right did a puny early-stage foundation establishment have to look down on such a powerful person? If Qin Chuan spoke rudely to the Qin family's ancestor, the consequences would be much more severe than if Qin Haoshuan spoke rudely. Sure enough, when he heard Qin Chuan mention the Qin family's ancestor, Qin Haoshuan's face instantly darkened. He stared coldly at Qin Chuan and said in a deep voice, "Do you know what happens to people who speak rudely to the Qin family's ancestor in the Federation? Then I'd like to see what happens." Qin Chuan sneered. "Without the Qin family and the ancestor behind you, who do you think you are?" Qin Chuan had already thrown caution to the wind. He had never been bullied like this in his life. Originally, he only wanted to complete the mission given to him by Tsang Hao, which was why he went against Qin Haoshuan. He wanted to take back the dragon's soul, but he didn't want to kill Qin Haoshuan. Now he changed his mind. Qin Haoshuan must die. Very well. Qin Haoshuan stared coldly at Qin Chuan and said, "If you can make it to the finals, I will kill you with my own hands." The Qin family's ancestor was humiliated because of him. Even though he was the Qin family's descendant, he would still be criticized and even be punished by the family. Therefore, he had to kill Qin Chuan to appease the family's internal voices. At this point, Qin Chuan had no interest in talking nonsense with Qin Haoshuan. He turned around and walked down the stage. He said to Baiyu, who was about to go up the stage, "Admit defeat for this match. We will start over from the revival match." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Baiyu nodded lightly and said to the referee, We admit defeat for this match. The referee nodded and didn't say anything else. The Black Moon Combat Academy was bound to lose. However, this wasn't important. What was important was that Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan had to sign a life-and-death agreement to determine life and death on the stage. The 6 Great Academies ranking tournament had been held for hundreds of years. However, in the eyes of the judge, even if Qin Xuan didn't sign a life-and-death agreement with Qin Haoshuan, he wouldn't be able to live for long. He had insulted the Qin family's ancestor and was destined to die. The first official match of the 6 Great Academies ranking tournament was won by the first academy of the Star Dragon Academy. However, not many people were paying attention to this matter. Almost everyone's attention was focused on the life-and-death agreement between Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan. No one would have thought that after Qin Xuan rejected Qin Haoshuan's invitation, things would turn out like this. For a moment, many people in the audience were cursing Qin Xuan. They thought that Qin Xuan was courting death by speaking rudely to the Qin family's ancestor. The Qin family's ancestor was a powerful nascent soul cultivator. He had always been a pillar of the Federation. If it wasn't for the protection of a powerful cultivator like the Qin family's ancestor, the human world would have been invaded by the demon race. Qin Xuan had openly insulted the Qin family's ancestor. This was the same as making an enemy out of everyone. Qin Xuan, you are too impulsive. In the medical room, the pale Long Shao looked at Qin Xuan helplessly. It was a big mistake to speak rudely to a nascent soul cultivator. Qin Xuan looked at Lu Zi, who was still unconscious. He pursed his lips and said, I know I shouldn't have spoken rudely to a big shot like the Qin family's ancestor. However, since it has already happened, there is nothing to say. Qin Xuan wasn't a fool. He knew that he would get into big trouble if he spoke rudely to the Qin family's ancestor. However, he didn't care about this anymore. He wanted to kill Qin Haoshuan, the Qilin son of the Qin family. Would the Qin family's ancestor just watch Qin Haoshuan die in his hands? Wouldn't he take revenge? Since he was destined to be enemies with the Qin family, did he need to care so much? Seeing Qin Xuan's attitude, Long Shao sighed and said, Do you really want to fight to the death with Qin Haoshuan in the arena? If Qin Xuan didn't kill Qin Haoshuan, he might still be able to survive. However, if Qin Xuan really killed Qin Haoshuan, the Qin family would definitely want Qin Xuan to die without a burial place. I said that no one could stop me if I want to kill him. Qin Xuan's attitude was very firm. No one could stop him from killing Qin Haoshuan. Beep, beep, beep. Qin Xuan's optical computer suddenly rang. He picked it up and saw that it was a video call from Ningya. Qin Xuan accepted the video call. He looked at Ningya, who was wearing an elegant white cheongsam, and said in a low voice, Teacher, so you still have me as your teacher. Ningya looked at Qin Xuan with a cold face and said, You don't even care about the old ancestor of the Qin family. Want my a little golden core realm, complete realm to you? Qin Xuan was silent. He didn't know how to respond to Ningya. Why aren't you saying anything? What happened to your domineering attitude in the arena just now? Looking at Qin Xuan's silent appearance, Ningya couldn't help but feel angry. Look at your dejected appearance. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that you had already lost to Qin Haoshuan. Wait and see how I will deal with you when I arrive at Star Dragon City. Teacher, you want to come to Star Dragon City? Qin Xuan raised his head and looked at Ningya in surprise. Ningya glared at Qin Xuan and said, I want to stay in Azure Ancient City peacefully. However, you are such a troublemaker. How can I sit still? Qin Xuan felt very guilty when he heard this. He said to Ningya, Teacher, all right. Ningya sighed and said helplessly, Who asked me to boast that I wouldn't intervene in the affairs of the younger generation? However, I would definitely block the older generation for you. I've lived for so many years, but I've only taken in one student like you. How can I watch you die at such a young age? Qin Xuan looked at Ningya with some astonishment. Teacher, you mean, if you can't defeat Qin Haoshuan and die in the arena, you'll be a waste. So what if you die? Ningya stared deeply at Qin Xuan as she spoke in an incomparably resolute tone. However, If you survive, anyone who wants to touch you will have to ask for my permission first. As long as I'm alive. Even if the patriarch of the Qin family personally comes, he can forget about touching a single strand of your hair. After the video call ended, Qin Xuan was still staring blankly at the optical computer. He didn't come back to his senses. When Long Xiao, who was standing to the side, saw Qin Xuan's expression, he couldn't help but say to Qin Xuan in an envious tone, "You are really lucky to have a teacher like Teacher Ning." Chapter 278. Originally, not many people took the enmity between Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan to heart. They thought that it was just a dispute between young people. However, it was different now. Qin Xuan had openly spoken rudely to the Qin family's ancestor. If Qin Haoshuan didn't do anything, he would definitely be criticized. Because this matter involved the Qin family's ancestor, the reporters were very cautious and didn't mention anything about the Qin family's ancestor in their reports. They only reported on the enmity between Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan. However, even so, the popularity of this matter was still high. Not many people cared about the competition in the afternoon. Qin family, study room. Qin Yiming looked at Qin Haoshuan with a gloomy expression. He slammed the table and said sternly, "Do you know how much trouble you've caused for our Qin family?" Facing Qin Yiming's reprimand, Qin Haoshuan lowered his head and didn't say anything. This matter was caused by him, so he had to bear this reprimand. Seeing Qin Haoshuan's performance, Qin Yiming snorted and said, "Tell me, if you meet Qin Xuan, how confident are you in defeating him?" 100%. Qin Haoshuan replied without hesitation. "I will definitely make this person who dares to insult the ancestor die without a burial ground." Now, Qin Haoshuan's hatred for Qin Xuan could be said to be monstrous. If he couldn't cut Qin Xuan into pieces, it would be difficult for him to dispel the hatred in his heart. Remember, you can't lose this battle no matter what. If you lose, our Qin family will lose face. Qin Yiming looked coldly at Qin Haoshuan. "If you weren't the ancestor's grandson and my son, just based on the trouble you've caused for our Qin family today, it's enough for you to die 10,000 times. I know I was wrong." Qin Haoshuan straightforwardly admitted his mistake. He had no intention of quibbling. "After leaving my place, don't rest or eat. Go directly to the cultivation room where the ancestor is in seclusion and kneel until tomorrow morning. Although the ancestor won't interrupt his cultivation to come out and see you, you have to let others see your sincere attitude of admitting your mistake. Do you understand?" "I understand." The conversation between father and son came to an end. Qin Haoshuan left the study and walked towards the cultivation room where the ancestor was in seclusion. On the way, he met Qin Ju, who was waiting for him. Qin Ju stood in the middle of the road and looked at Qin Haoshuan, who was slowly walking over. She took a step forward and slapped Qin Haoshuan's face. "Why?" Qin Ju looked at Qin Haoshuan sternly. "Answer me." Qin Haoshuan raised his hand and touched his burning cheek. Then he looked at Qin Ju. "This is the first time you've hit me since I was young. Your father doesn't understand you, but I do. You're deliberately provoking Qin Xuan today. Everything is under your control. So what?" "I wasn't the one who forced him to say those words. I wasn't the one who suggested the life and death agreement. Moreover, he was indeed the one who rejected my recruitment and insulted me." Hearing this, Qin Ju's expression couldn't help but become pained. She asked Qin Haoshuan in confusion, "Why are you doing this? I also want to ask you, Aunt, why are you so careful to protect that Qin Xuan?" Qin Haoshuan looked at Qin Ju with a puzzled expression. He's just an outsider. Could it be that Aunt is tempted? When he said this, Qin Haoshuan found it hard to believe. How could Qin Ju be tempted by a hothead like Qin Xuan? "There's another reason why I'm protecting Qin Xuan." Qin Ju pursed his lips and said, "You can't kill him. He's the one who wants to kill me." Qin Haoshuan smiled lightly. "Aunt, you can't stop me, nor can you stop him. I will stop him." Qin Ju turned around and left. She had to stop all of this from happening. In the office, the atmosphere today was exceptionally gloomy. It was not only because of the defeat, but also because Qin Chuan had caused a huge disaster by standing up for Lu Zi. Now, the entrance of the office had been thrown everywhere by the people who had heard the news. It was extremely dirty and smelly. They stood at the entrance and cursed at Qin Chuan, wanting Qin Chuan to commit suicide to apologize. Qin Chuan did not stay with the others. He lay alone in the room, not thinking about anything. He looked at the roof with empty eyes. He was not someone who would be easily disturbed by the outside world. However, this did not mean that he liked to hear those unpleasant words. Although he could not hear the sounds outside in the living room, compared to the gloomy expressions on everyone's faces, he preferred to be alone and quiet. Even if Lu Zi, who had woken up, wanted to see him, she was rejected by him. Now, he did not want to see anyone. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Qin Chuan turned his head and looked in the direction of the door. Come in. The door was pushed open from the outside. The person who walked in was Chun Chongqing. He glanced at Qin Chuan and said, Boss, someone wants to see you. It's the commander of the 10th Army, General Qin. Hearing Chun Chongqing's words, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned. He pondered for a moment, sat up, and said to Chun Chongqing, Go and invite General Qin in. Chun Chongqing turned around and left. Not long after, Qin Ju, who was dressed in black, appeared at the door. Qin Chuan sat cross-legged on the bed and looked at Qin Ju, who slowly walked in. He smiled and asked, General Qin, are you here to denounce me? I'm here. Qin Ju looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated gaze and said, What do you want me to do for you to give up on signing a life and death agreement with Hao Xuan? Qin Chuan looked at Qin Ju in surprise and asked in confusion, Why are you doing this? Are you worried that I'll kill Qin Hao Xuan? As Qin Hao Xuan's aunt, shouldn't you be very confident in Qin Hao Xuan? Qin Ju shook his head and said, You and Hao Xuan, I don't want to see anyone get hurt. This time, Qin Chuan was even more surprised. Is it because of teacher? Qin Chuan was very puzzled. Could it be that the relationship between Ningya and Qin Ju was so good that Qin Ju would care about him, speaking rudely to the Qin family's ancestor? No matter what the reason is, it doesn't matter. Qin Ju looked deeply at Qin Chuan and said, I can vouch for you. You can personally apologize to my father and then admit in front of the media that you are young and ignorant. You offended my father because of anger. It was an unintentional mistake. Then, the Qin family will forgive you, and everything will be exposed. Qin Chuan looked at Qin Ju in astonishment and said, You actually thought about it so thoroughly? This is the best solution. So do you agree? This was the best solution that Qin Ju could think of now. Sorry, I can't. Qin Chuan shook his head and said firmly, I must kill Qin Hao Xuan. It's useless for anyone to persuade me. Chapter 279. The first day of the 6th Great Academy's qualifiers officially ended. Under the leadership of the Little Sword Celestial, the Divine Sword Academy defeated the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university and won the second spot to advance to the semifinals. However, not many people paid attention to this because most of their attention was focused on Qin Chuan and Qin Hao Xuan. The incident between Qin Chuan and Qin Hao Xuan had already spread throughout the entire Federation. Although the Qin family had not made any moves yet, everyone knew that this was just the calm before the storm. The Qin family would definitely not let this matter go so easily. At night, Zhou Lin arrived at the Black Moon Combat Academy's office. She frowned when she saw the mess outside the door. She glanced at the passers-by who were eyeing her covetously and walked straight to the office's door. She pressed the dirt-covered doorbell. Soon, the office's door opened a crack, allowing Zhou Lin to enter from the side. The people surrounding her did not force their way in. Instead, they threw the objects in their hands into the crack. Fortunately, Zhou Lin was fast enough, and those objects did not hit the door. Zhou Lin heard the commotion behind her and said to Wang Bo, who opened the door for her, You should be able to call the police, right? Wang Bo smiled bitterly and said helplessly, Don't mention it. Of course we called the police. However, when the police arrived, these people dispersed. When the police left, they came back. It's really a headache. Where's Qin Chuan? Zhou Lin asked Wang Bo, "Where is he?" Qin Chuan said that he doesn't want to see anyone. Wang Bo shrugged and said, "Perhaps you'll have come here for nothing. He doesn't want to see anyone, but that doesn't mean that he won't see me." Zhou Lin walked inside and said to Wang Bo, "Take me to his room." Seeing that Zhou Lin insisted on seeing Qin Chuan, Wang Bo, who knew that the relationship between Qin Chuan and Zhou Lin was not ordinary, felt helpless. He could only lead the way. Along the way, they met many people. Everyone was surprised by Zhou Lin's arrival, but they did not ask too much. Everyone knew that Zhou Lin was here for Qin Chuan. Wang Bo stood in front of Qin Chuan's door and said to Zhou Lin, "This is Qin Chuan's room. You can go in by yourself." "Thank you." Zhou Lin thanked Wang Bo and then pushed the door open. She thought that the door would be locked. It was not locked, and the door was opened easily. The lights in the room were not turned on, and it was very dim. Zhou Lin stood at the door for a while, then walked towards the bed. She had only taken 2 steps when she heard Qin Chuan's voice in the darkness. "Who?" "It's me." After a simple question and answer, the room became quiet again. Zhou Lin slowly walked to the side of the bed and looked at Qin Chuan, who was lying on the bed. She actually sat on the side of the bed, took off her shoes, and lay down next to Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan saw Zhou Lin's action. A subtle look flashed across his eyes. He said softly, "Senior sister, why are you here?" Zhou Lin put her hands behind her head and looked at the dark ceiling. She said to Qin Chuan, "Qin Chongxiao, the ancestor of the Qin clan, is 216 years old. He is in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. He cultivates the unique skill of the Qin clan, the extreme wind swordsmanship. His extreme wind swordsmanship is superb. That's why he is called the extreme wind swordsman." Qin Chuan was surprised to hear Zhou Lin talking about Qin Chongxiao. He asked, "Senior sister, how do you know so much about the ancestor of the Qin clan?" Zhou Lin turned and looked at Qin Chuan seriously. She said, "If you die in the hands of the ancestor of the Qin clan, I will avenge you." Qin Chuan did not know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Zhou Lin and said, "Senior sister, are you cursing me? I am only in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. I can't help you against Qin Chongxiao, who is in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. All I can do is avenge you." Zhou Lin said seriously. If Qin Chuan really met with misfortune, she would kill Qin Chongxiao within 30 years to avenge Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan was stunned by Zhou Lin's serious attitude. He smiled and said, "Senior sister, I won't die. That's good. I don't want you to be in any danger. I don't have many friends in this world. You are one of them and the one I cherish the most. Senior sister, you sound like you are confessing to me. Just take it as a confession. I'm afraid that I won't have the chance to say it in the future." This time, Qin Chuan was completely stunned. He had said those words to liven up the atmosphere, but he did not expect Zhou Lin to admit it so readily. When she saw Qin Chuan's dazed expression, Zhou Lin seemed to be frightened by her own boldness. She once again turned her gaze towards the ceiling as she softly said, "Let me tell you my story." "Okay." Qin Chuan agreed and played with his fingers as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Zhou Lin turned sideways to look at Qin Chuan, who was still asleep. After a while, she slowly got up, put on her shoes, and left the house. As she was leaving, she coincidentally bumped into Wang Bo, who had come to deliver breakfast to Qin Chuan. Wang Bo looked at Zhou Lin, who had just left the house, in astonishment. "Yes." Zhou Lin indifferently answered Wang Bo's question. Then she took a bite of the bun on the plate and said, "Qin Chuan slept very late last night. Don't disturb him now. Come back after 10 o'clock. I still have a match, so I'll leave first." Wang Bo stood there and watched Zhou Lin leave. He could not believe that Qin Chuan and Zhou Lin actually spent the night together. If someone said that nothing happened, he would never believe it. May 30th, 9 o'clock in the morning. The third match of the 6th Grade Academy's ranking tournament was between Federation Military University and Starry Sky Academy. The Queen of Blades, Zhou Lin, took the stage and defeated Federation Military University in a 1 versus 5 match. She successfully advanced to the semifinals. The result of this battle shocked the world. No one thought that Federation Military University, who had such a strong player like Shimin Bey, would lose so thoroughly. It must be known that in the past 6 Great Academies ranking tournament, Starry Sky Academy had never advanced to the semifinals. They had always been at the bottom of the rankings. Although Zhou Lin's appearance today made everyone's eyes light up, no one really took Zhou Lin to heart. However, it was this person who was ignored by everyone who had unbelievably completed the magnificent feat of winning 5 in a row. For a time, Zhou Lin's name resounded through the streets and alleys of Star Dragon City. It even faintly overshadowed the matter of Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan signing a life and death agreement yesterday. In the eyes of ordinary people, this might not be anything special. However, in the eyes of some people, this was deliberately hyping up and building momentum for Zhou Lin. The rise of a commoner genius was always the most eye-catching. Chapter 280. The first round of the 6 Great Academies official ranking competition had ended, and the revival round was next. In the revival round, the main focus was naturally on the Black Moon Combat Academy and Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan were at each other's throats. If Qin Xuan could lead his team out of the revival round and into the semifinals, then it would naturally add to the suspense and hype of the finals. However, if Qin Xuan's team was defeated in the revival round, then what awaited Qin Xuan would be endless ridicule and abuse. He might even be hunted down by the Qin family. At that time, no one would sympathize with Qin Xuan, and they would feel that Qin Xuan was pitiful. Those who spoke arrogant words without any strength should pay the price. It was important to know that the official ranking competition of the 6 Great Academies was different from the freshman competition. No matter which team entered the revival round, they were all extremely strong, and they all had extremely famous celebrity contestants. It was no exaggeration to say that the Black Moon Combat Academy was definitely the weakest team in the revival round. After being mercilessly crushed by Qin Haoshuan, how much strength these people could still display was something worth pondering. If they still relied on Qin Xuan's outstanding performance like they did in the freshman competition, then the Black Moon Combat Academy would definitely lose. The revival round's lot drawing ceremony was not broadcasted live, and it was only announced after the results were out. Among the 3 teams, the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated universities team had a bye. The first match would be between the Black Moon Combat Academy and the Federation's military university. Regarding this result, some people were happy, while others were sad. The Black Moon Combat Academy had already been pushed to the teeth of the storm because of the conflict between Qin Xuan and Qin Haoshuan. In the revival round, the Black Moon Combat Academy would need to win 2 matches in a row before they could break out of the encirclement. It could be said that they had entered a hellish challenge. Many people who originally had a trace of hope for the Black Moon Combat Academy had now lost their confidence. No one believed that the Black Moon Combat Academy would be able to win 2 matches in a row and enter the semifinals. The revival round was set to be held on the 1st of June at 9 in the morning. The Black Moon Combat Academy and the Federation's military university only had 1 day to adjust. It was during this period of time that a nightmare occurred for the Black Moon Combat Academy. The star contestant of the Federal Military University, Shimin Bey, had successfully advanced to the late stage of the Foundation Establishment stage in his agitation due to his loss to Zhou Lin. Shimin Bey's strength was already extremely strong. When he had just entered the early Foundation Establishment stage, he had already galloped through the battlefield and killed countless demons. All of his abilities had been gained through actual combat. After that, he had successfully advanced to the Middle Foundation Establishment stage on the battlefield and killed dozens of demon generals in a row, making a name for himself. Today, Shimin Bey had learned from his humiliation and bravely advanced to the late Foundation Establishment stage. For the Federal Military Academy, this was definitely a joyous occasion for them, who had advanced to the semi-finals of the Revival Tournament. However, for the Black Moon Combat Academy, this was one disaster after another. Now, even some of Qin Xuan's loyal fans couldn't help but worry for Qin Chuan. Against the mid-stage foundation establishment stage, Ximen Bei, Qin Chuan might be able to put up a fight. However, against the late-stage foundation establishment stage Ximen Bei, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for Qin Chuan to win. When they heard this news, everyone from the Black Moon Combat Academy felt their hearts sink to the extreme. They all had some understanding of Ximen Bei's strength, and they had also seen the video of Ximen Bei's fight with Zhou Lin. Although Ximen Bei had lost to Zhou Lin, it had only been a narrow defeat, and he hadn't been crushed. After the results of the draw had been announced, they had asked Zhou Lin for advice. Zhou Lin had personally admitted that she had been able to defeat Ximen Bei because of their attributes. If that wasn't the case, she might not have been able to defeat Ximen Bei. Ximen Bei has advanced to the late-stage foundation establishment stage. His realm has increased by a small level, and his strength has also increased. Even senior Zhou Lin had to rely on her attributes to barely defeat Ximen Bei. Why do we have to encounter such a troublesome fellow? Chen Changxing looked at the news report on the optical computer with a worried expression. Originally, they didn't have much of an advantage against the Federal Military University. Now that Ximen Bei's strength had increased, it would be even harder for them to win. Hearing Chen Changxing sigh, Blue Pool frowned slightly and said, "We should have more confidence in Boss." Chen Changxing sighed and said, "Of course I have confidence in Boss, but we can't be too blindly optimistic. You can't really think that Boss can stop the Qin family's patriarch, right?" Chen Changxing's words left Blue Pool somewhat speechless. Even in his dreams, he wouldn't dare to think that an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator could stop a nascent soul cultivator. When Han Ting, who was sitting not far away, heard Chen Changxing and Blue Pool's conversation, his countenance changed again and again. He suddenly got up and walked towards the cultivation room, heading straight for Qin Chuan. When Qin Chuan, who was in the midst of weight training, saw Han Ting appear before him, he put down the equipment in his hands and wiped his sweat with a towel. He said to Han Ting, "Senior, are you looking for me for something?" Han Ting looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely guilty gaze and said, "Qin Chuan, I'm really sorry." Hearing Han Ting suddenly apologize to him, Qin Chuan was a little shocked. He asked in confusion, "Senior, what do you mean by this? If I had given up my spot for you in the first round, perhaps the situation would be very different from now." It could be said that Han Ting's heart was filled with extreme bitterness. He had only stood on the arena of his dreams for less than a minute. At the moment the whistle blew, he had fallen off the arena. To him, all of this was a complete and utter humiliation. Even now, he didn't dare to recall it. Such an outcome was completely different from his dream of fighting with all his might. If he had known earlier that this would be the outcome, he would have given up his spot to Qin Chuan long ago. This way, perhaps they wouldn't have entered the revival round, and Qin Chuan and Qin Haoshuan wouldn't have had such an intense conflict, resulting in such a situation. In the end, it was all his fault for being too selfish. He was really the most useless person among all of them. Hearing Han Ting's words and seeing the guilty expression on his face, Qin Chuan smiled and said to Han Ting, "Senior, before things happen, no one knows what the outcome will be. It's very normal and very reasonable that you want to experience the stage of the official competition. I've never blamed you. Moreover, the matter between Qin Haoshuan and me isn't as simple as you think." Qin Chuan, all right, Senior, if you really care about me, you shouldn't disturb my cultivation at this time, and you shouldn't say these words to me. Qin Chuan helplessly looked at Han Ting and said, "What you need to do next is to be my loyal fan and watch how I beat up my opponents." Ximen Bei is now in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. So what? Qin Chuan chuckled and said indifferently, "As long as he's not in the golden core stage, I have nothing to fear." Chapter 284. Although Qin Chuan and Ximen Bei didn't use the power of their innate runes, but from the collision of their spiritual qi, it could be felt that Qin Chuan's spiritual qi was more violent and powerful, while Ximen Bei's spiritual qi was more broad and boundless. Both spiritual chi and Shimin Bei's spiritual chi were somewhat similar to the attribute of their innate runes. Therefore, in this collision of spiritual chi, both sides were extremely distinct. At this time, Qin Chuan's spiritual chi had transformed into a long dragon, and just like a greedy snake, it was crazily devouring Shimin Bei's spiritual chi. But Shimin Bei didn't pay any attention to this, and let Qin Chuan devour his spiritual chi. He just unceasingly stimulated his spiritual chi to maintain the current situation and prevent it from worsening. With the passage of time, the doubts in Qin Chuan's heart became more and more. He always felt that Shimin Bei was deliberately letting him devour spiritual chi. But what benefit would it bring to Shimin Bei? Just when Qin Chuan was thinking about these questions, under his control, the huge dragon that was unceasingly devouring Shimin Bei's spiritual chi suddenly became somewhat stiff and slow. Perceiving this change, Qin Chuan's complexion couldn't help but slightly change. Unknowingly, that huge dragon had unexpectedly turned into a light green color, and faintly, it was about to break away from his control. Subconsciously, Qin Chuan looked towards Shimin Bei. Seeing the victorious smile on Shimin Bei's face, Qin Chuan finally understood that the reason why his huge dragon was showing signs of breaking away from his control was because it had devoured a large amount of Shimin Bei's spiritual chi. My spiritual chi is of the wood attribute, and it grows and multiplies endlessly. Although your huge dragon has devoured a lot of my spiritual chi and seems to have weakened my strength, but in fact, your huge dragon can't quickly digest the spiritual chi that it has devoured. When the remaining spiritual chi accumulates to a certain extent, this huge dragon may not be under your control anymore. From the beginning, Shimin Bei didn't really intend to confront Qin Chuan head-on. He wanted to use softness to conquer strength, and from the inside, he wanted to collapse Qin Chuan's fortress. Once there was no spiritual chi, huge dragon, Qin Chuan would inevitably be unable to maintain his stability, and in this way, he would win. Let's give it a try. Qin Chuan shouted, and the spiritual chi within his body surged and crazily poured into the huge dragon's body. He started a battle with Shimin Bei for the control. Just when Qin Chuan and Shimin Bei were crazily fighting for the control, the commentary platform also burst out with exclamations. This is really a good scheme. Shimin Bei allowed Qin Chuan to devour his spiritual chi, and I originally thought that it was because Qin Chuan's spiritual chi was too aggressive, but I didn't expect that this was actually done by Shimin Bei deliberately. Now, Qin Chuan has fallen into Shimin Bei's trap, and once he loses control of the huge dragon, he will inevitably lose. Compared to Shimin Bei, who has been on the battlefield for a long time, Qin Chuan's experience is still too little. All of us thought that Shimin Bei would be just like his performance on the battlefield, but we didn't expect that he would actually play a trick. Shimin Bei is really good at both civil and martial arts. Those who couldn't perceive the changes in the situation heard the commentators' words, and some of them cheered for Shimin Bei, and some of them were worried for Qin Chuan. Shimin Bei was originally stronger than Qin Chuan, and now he had the advantage. Didn't this mean that there was a high probability that Qin Chuan would lose? Just when everyone was discussing spiritedly, an earth-shattering dragon roar suddenly resounded in the arena, and everyone saw that between Qin Chuan and Shimin Bei, a huge blue dragon suddenly jumped out, and with a roar, it rushed towards Qin Chuan. Seeing this scene, everyone subconsciously exclaimed, "Was Qin Chuan going to lose?" Just as the huge dragon's mouth was about to bite Qin Chuan, the huge dragon's body froze in midair as if it had been paralyzed. Qin Chuan's complexion was pale as he grinned towards Shimin Bei, who had a startled expression on his face, and said, "I'll let you have the huge dragon, but victory is mine." Before Qin Chuan's voice fell, the huge dragon's body suddenly swelled, and an extremely violent fluctuation of spiritual energy descended on the arena, setting off a monstrous wave of spiritual energy. Under this crazy wave of spiritual energy, Shimin Bei's body was like a small boat in a storm, and he was only able to persist for a short moment. And then he was swept away by the shock wave and was forced to retreat. At this time, standing opposite of Shimin Bei, Qin Chuan actually laughed, although he was also forced to retreat, but he was slower than Shimin Bei by a beat. In other words, according to the rules, he won. The violent spiritual energy shock wave almost completely overturned the entire arena, and in the midst of the mess, Qin Chuan was laughing heartily, while Shimin Bei had a helpless expression on his face. When the audience saw the scene on the stage, their eyes widened. Who would have thought that the stage, which was brand new and flat just a second ago, would become such a mess in an instant? Such a terrifying power was probably enough to tear an ordinary person to pieces in an instant. Who would have thought that in the end, this spiritual energy collision actually turned into a contest of physical strength? Although the huge dragon broke away from Qin Chuan's control, and the scale of victory was tilted towards Shimin Bei, Qin Chuan overturned the table and made the two of them return to the same starting line. And then, relying on the strength of his physical body, he was able to persist in this spiritual energy storm for a longer time than Shimin Bei and obtained the final victory. I just calculated, Qin Chuan only lasted 0.4 seconds longer than Shimin Bei. It was this minute gap that was almost impossible for ordinary people to notice, and it allowed Qin Chuan to obtain victory. However, this is only an agreement between Qin Chuan and Shimin Bei. If Shimin Bei doesn't want to admit it, then Qin Chuan can't do anything about it. Now, whether this match continues or ends, it all depends on Shimin Bei's decision. The moment the commentator's voice fell, Qin Chuan had already climbed up from the ruins and slowly walked in front of Shimin Bei, and with his hand on Shimin Bei's neck, he said with a smile, "KO." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shimin Bei smiled and pulled Qin Chuan's hand to stand up and said, "In the past, I didn't believe in familiarity at first sight, but this time, I believe in it." Shimin Bei had been isolated since childhood, and he had almost no friends, but today, he made the first close friend in his life. "Okay, you should go down now." Qin Chuan grinned. "I still want to continue the match with your Federal Military University's other students. Those people are just good-for-nothings." Shimin Bei smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "When the time comes, hit them harder. At least don't make them look better than me, or else I will lose face." "Don't worry, I will definitely beat them." Qin Chuan promised Shimin Bei. He liked to do this kind of thing the most. Under the ring, the Federal Military University's students heard the conversation between Qin Chuan and Shimin Bei, and they couldn't help but have black lines on their faces. It seemed like there was a traitor among them. Chapter 285, Black Heaven Sect Affiliated University Cultivation Room. Chun Aochu sat on a soft and comfortable sofa as he gloomily stared at the crystal screen. His expression was quite ugly as he watched Qin Chuan slaughtering everyone in the arena. "Stop looking." A tall figure slowly walked over and turned off the crystal screen. She said to Chun Aochu, "Looking at this now will only make you upset. There's no other use." Chun Aochu raised his head and looked at the woman beside him. He coldly said, "Shimin Bei lost to Qin Chuan. The Black Moon Combat Academy defeated the Federal Military University. In the next battle, we will face Qin Chuan." "So what?" The woman stood beside Chun Aochu and asked, "Are you worried that you won't be Qin Chuan's opponent?" "Li Sairu," Chun Aochu shouted, "do you really want to see me lose to Qin Chuan and lose face in front of Chun Changxing?" Li Sairu gently smiled and asked, "Why would you think that? The entire Black Heaven sect knows that you were once Chun Changxing's fiancé and that he deeply loves you. However, I forcefully annulled the engagement and destroyed the beautiful marriage between the two of you. This caused Chun Changxing to run away from home and go to the Black Moon Combat Academy. Since then, you have been separated from him. Don't you hate me?" Chun Aochu stared at Li Sairu, trying to find some clues from Li Sairu's expression. "I'm not a fickle woman. Since you and I have an engagement, I will naturally follow the arrangements of my elders and become your wife." Li Sairu smiled and said, "Chun Changxing has already returned to Star Dragon City for a month. If I really had feelings for him, I would have gone to see him long ago. Hearing Li Sairu's words, Chun Aochu's expression softened a little. During this time, he had sent people to keep an eye on Li Sairu. Li Sairu had indeed not gone to see Qin Chongxing, nor had she privately mentioned Qin Chongxing. From this, it could be seen that Li Sairu was not lying. "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you." Chen Aochu pulled Li Sairu into his embrace, burying his handsome face in her hair. Breathing in her fresh fragrance, he couldn't help but feel desire rising in his heart. "All right, I won't disturb your cultivation anymore. Let's do our best for the competition the day after tomorrow." Li Sairu left Chun Aochu's arms and smiled at him. Then, she turned and walked out of the training room. Looking at Li Sairu's perfect figure, the light in Chun Aochu's eyes became hotter and hotter. Not only did he want to occupy Chun Chongxing's woman, he also wanted to make Chun Chongxing suffer a crushing defeat. He would definitely win the next match. After Shimin Bei was defeated by Qin Chuan, the next match became a one-man show for Qin Chuan. The remaining 4 representatives of the Federal Military University were all defeated by Qin Chuan without any effort. Before the start of the competition, no one would have thought that Qin Chuan would be able to have such a strong dominance in the official competition. Although it was only the revival round, and Qin Chuan was facing opponents who had been eliminated in the first round, this was enough to show how strong Qin Chuan was. This made everyone involuntarily recall what Long Xiao had said during the interview at the Black Moon Combat Academy. Qin Chuan was the strongest among the younger generation. From his current performance, Qin Chuan could definitely be considered one of the strongest among the younger generation. However, whether or not he was the strongest would depend on how far Qin Chuan could go in the official competition. As for the fans of Star Dragon's first academy, when they saw that Qin Chuan had received such praise, they couldn't help but feel unhappy. Thus, they had no choice but to place their hopes on the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university. They hoped that Chen Aochu could defeat Qin Chuan and make Qin Chuan suffer a crushing defeat. The victorious Black Moon Combat Academy group returned to the office. Looking at the clean and tidy entrance, they were all in a good mood. As long as they could maintain their current state and win consecutive matches, then no one would care about the criticism directed at them anymore. However, it was still difficult to win consecutive matches. They had just defeated one opponent, and they still had to face the Black Sky Sex-affiliated university and their opponents in the semifinals. There was still a long way to go, and now was not the time to relax. After returning to the office, everyone sat together and reviewed the day's matches. The clash of spiritual energies between Qin Chuan and Shimin Bei was naturally the most important. While everyone was talking loudly, Qin Chuan keenly noticed that Qin Chongxing, who had always been the most enthusiastic, was extremely silent. It was as if he had something on his mind. "Chongxing, come with me." Qin Chuan suddenly stood up and said to everyone with a smile, "Chongxing, and I will go get some food for everyone." When Qin Chongxing heard Qin Chuan call out his name, he stood up and followed Qin Chuan out of the living room. The two of them walked to the dining room, one in front and one behind. Along the way, neither of them spoke. When they arrived at the dining room, Qin Chuan suddenly turned to look at Qin Chongxing and asked, "What's on your mind?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Qin Chongxing was stunned for a moment. Then he forced a smile and said, "Nothing. Speak." Qin Chuan looked at Qin Chongxing. "It must be very uncomfortable to keep it bottled up in your heart." Qin Chongxing was silent for a moment. Then he suddenly opened the photon computer on his wrist and presented a message to Qin Chuan. The message was very simple. There were no words, only a picture of a very beautiful woman. Looking at the picture, Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled. What did this mean? Her name is Li Sairu. She was supposed to be my fiancée. Speaking of the past, Qin Chongxing's face could not help but reveal a touch of loneliness. But Chen Aochu, that bastard, coveted Sairu. He forcefully separated me and Sairu and replaced me as Sairu's fiancée. He just sent this picture to me. Hearing Qin Chongxing's explanation, Qin Chuan could not help but be stunned. He really did not think that Chun Chongqing and Chun Aochu actually had such a past. We are about to face off against the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated university. He sent this to you to mess with your mentality. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Chun Chongqing, "Do you still like this woman?" Chun Chongqing was silent again. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan understood. If Chun Chongqing had already let go of the past, why would he be so sad just because of a picture? When it came to matters of the heart, even Qin Chuan himself knew little about it. He was not qualified to comfort Chun Chongqing. He could only reach out and gently pat Chun Chongqing's shoulder, saying, "The more Chun Aochu messes with you, the more it proves that he is afraid of us. As long as we can defeat the Black Heaven Sect's affiliated university in the arena, we can definitely make Chun Aochu lose face. It will be 10,000 times worse than you are now." Chun Chongqing nodded vigorously and said, "Boss, I will do my best." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.